Have you ever wanted to play Survivor? Or even Survivor Branford? Well, now's your chance. So just sit back, close your eyes, and let your heart and your mind guide you through your own Survivor adventure. You're standing alongside 11 others. Everyone looks eager and energetic. As you look around and size up the group, you make notes to yourself on who you think could be a potential ally and who might be someone to steer clear of. Before your mind gets carried away, you remember that you don't even know who's on your tribe yet. When will that be decided, you think, as the looks on other faces suggest that your peers have come to this realization as well. But that question is quickly answered as a tray of wrapped buffs makes its way to you. Several others have already made their selection with excitement, but as instructed, no one has opened their buff yet. And now all eyes are on you as the tray of buffs is right under your nose. How could it be so hard to pick a random and wrapped buff, you think to yourself? But with your fate in your hands, you can't help but think that there is indeed a right and a wrong selection you could make so early in the game. As you reach out your hand, you still aren't sure where it's going to go. On a hunch, you invite Melissa to take a quick walk with you away from camp. Going in the opposite direction of Rob and Amanda, you venture down to the water. You tell Melissa that if she just goes along with Amanda's plan, it gives her too much power in the game, and last impressions are a big deal when it comes to the jury. As Melissa buys in, you also mention that flipping and being unpredictable has been her MO in this game, and this would just be yet another opportunity to drive that narrative home in front of the jury. She says that she needs to think it over, and probably won't have her mind made up until it's time to vote. At Tribal Council, you again lay out the arguments you made to Melissa. It's tough to know if doing this makes her any more likely to see things your way, but you have nothing to lose at this point. As you cast your vote for Rob, you're tempted to pull out another piece of parchment and write his name down again, but you'll hopefully leave that part to Melissa. As the votes are read, the first two are for you, which you knew would happen. Next comes your vote for Rob, and then you can hardly believe your good fortune as the final vote is also for Rob. Melissa has once again reprised her role as an unpredictable player and gone along with your plan. You want to hug her, but you know that there's one more piece of business that needs to be taken care of first, a fire-making challenge against Rob. As you settle in behind your fire-making station, you know that this is going to be a tough assignment as Rob is very proficient at making fire. But with a surge of confidence, you tell yourself that you're going to make that fire and put his out. Take a look at the Venn diagram. The circle on the left shows various castaways who have made it to the final three in Survivor Branford. The circle on the right shows castaways who have won a Final Four tiebreaker challenge in Survivor. Only one person has done both things, made the final three in Survivor Branford, and won a Final Four tiebreaker challenge. But who is it? Convincing yourself that it's mind over matter, you grab a pole and throw it over your shoulders, taking your spot on a raised platform. Blue opts to put their first 20 pounds on you. The bar gets a little heavier, but it's nothing you can't handle. Several minutes later, Blue has once again decided to saddle you with 20 more pounds as your bar begins to sag a bit. You look over jealously at Amanda and Joe, who are still only holding the bar with no weight. Blue decides to spread out their distribution now. Joe gets 20 pounds, then a few minutes later, Amanda gets 20 pounds. After holding that 40 pounds on your shoulders for over 10 minutes, it's starting to feel like 400. As if you said that out loud, Blue decides it's time for you to take more weight and go up to 60 pounds. The bar begins to dig into you. The struggle must really be showing on your face, because Angela is encouraging Blue's weight bearers by saying that you're about to drop. Digging in, you push through, for 2 whole minutes. This can't be 60 pounds you're holding. The weights must have been measured wrong. Realizing you're making excuses, you try to recenter, but just as you shift the bar, it slides off of you and drops to the ground, eliminating you from the challenge. You take a seat and watch the rest play out. Despite the fact that everyone else lasted much longer in the challenge, it doesn't bother you. And when Blue goes on to win, largely due to your early exit, you aren't super concerned. As bad as you did here, You were the star in the last challenge, and still have line power going for you. What's Melissa done, you think, as you return to camp? Nothing. Exactly. Melissa's been too under the radar, and that makes her dangerous. Let her get to the merge, and one of the seats at the final tribal council will automatically be filled. By sunset, you feel pretty good about having made that argument to the rest of the tribe. At one point, you lied pretty poorly to Melissa and said that Amanda was being voted out. You hope she didn't pick up on the lie, but privately think it hardly matters. The tribal council discussion goes exactly how you want it to. The 4 votes on Melissa are exactly what you wanted to see. But the hidden immunity idol Melissa plays hits you like a lightning bolt. And the that one vote with your name in big bold writing is louder than thunder. Conversely, the one who unleashed that storm on you can only offer a meek, sorry, as you take in the stunned look of your tribe mates while you struggle to stand up. Having reached a major milestone in the game, everyone takes their seat around the table. Everyone agrees that the merge feast is some of the best food anyone's ever tasted. With the hunger felt by all, you're actually impressed with how civil everyone is behaving. The feast is great, as the game has been put aside, and real conversations are taking place. You feel accomplished, as you've been able to get to know everyone from the other tribe a little bit. As most have moved into drinks and dessert, you suddenly notice that Dennis's unused napkin has something sticking out from it. In that moment, all you want is to own whatever that is. Minds churning about how to claim the prize, you ignore Angela's question to you, which draws a scowl, and whispers to Rob. You've decided that in the minute you've had to think about this, getting what you want can't be done alone. I need an accomplice. Sitting to your left is Mare, while Joe takes the cushion to your right. I just need one of them to distract Dennis so that I can swipe whatever he has while I pretend to go for fourths. But who can I count on? Survivor is the ultimate social game, you think, reflecting on your preparation before the game began. Time to put that into motion. Finding Rob and Mare, you try to audible the plan to Amanda. It's still 3-on-3, you say calmingly. Dennis winning immunity isn't the end of the world. They acknowledge this, and as you head away, you see Melissa running to catch up with them. If they could only relay that plan to her, maybe we're onto something, you think. Might as well take a shot at talking to Dennis. What do I have to lose? You find Dennis lounging at camp. Just an extra perk of having immunity. You cut right to the chase with him, and say that you know he's looking to vote you out. You choose your words carefully. What would you think about... Nope, Dennis interrupts. But maybe it would be a better move for you to... No way, Dennis again interrupts. You're losing my jury vote by not hearing me out, you counter. I'll be just fine without your vote, Dennis smiles. Giving up, you know this is the ultimate example of power going to someone's head. As last preparations are made before tribal council, you notice Mayor Rob and Melissa wrapping up a marathon conversation. Wanting to pin your hopes to it, you pack your things up. At tribal council, you're exhausted from having talked all afternoon, but you catch a second wind and say it all again in front of everyone and in front of the jury. Needing only a spark to catch in order to overthrow Dennis, you watch everyone very carefully as they go to cast their votes. The first vote is revealed to be for Amanda. Your vote. Never a good sign, you think. The second vote is for you. And the third, and the fourth, and the fifth. As you say your goodbyes, you find a chance during a hug with Mare to ask what she talked about with Rob and Melissa for so long. She excitedly whispers to you that Melissa's going to flip over with her and Rob at 5. They're going to the final 3. Hurt by this, you can't blame her, as Survivor is an individual game. Well, I'm about to go individually eat an entire pizza is the most comforting thought you have now, as this game is over. Mark joins Angela on the puzzle as you stretch your arms in anticipation of swimming. You see that the other tribe has put up Lisa and Steve to do the puzzle, and they're both expert puzzle makers. You know that you have to make sure to give Angela and Mark a lead to work with to maximize your chances of winning the challenge. You, Rob, Eddie, and Mare line up at the water's edge, alongside the 4 swimmers from Red. We've put our best foot forward, but I just hope I'm not the weak link here, you think. Survivors ready? Go! Take a look at the two different paths your tribe could swim in order to get to the puzzle pieces. In order to increase your chances of winning the challenge, you'll want to take the shorter path. But which one is it? Hold up, bro, you say, reaching into your pocket. Out comes the steal a vote advantage that you got during the merge feast. Thanks to Dennis only paying attention to the food and nothing else, I now have this little guy, you say, as Dennis looks utterly perplexed, while Amanda and Melissa's faces have done 180s from very calm to very uncomfortable. Opening the paper, you read it aloud and say that it gives you the ability to steal another player's vote and cast it on their behalf. Knowing it doesn't make a huge difference who you choose, you go for the biggest reaction. I'll be stealing Amanda's vote tonight, you say, as she throws her arms up in the air. I'm gonna do for you what you should have done for yourself last time. Angela is loving this from the jury box, as it's time to vote. Feeling very cocky at this point, you try to cast Amanda's vote in her writing, but fail miserably. But what doesn't fail is the plan. Though you get 3 votes, they just bounce off as thanks to Amanda's vote, Joe is voted out 4-3. And seeing his torch snuffed is symbolic to you. The end of Red versus Blue, and a whole new game. With lightning-fast reflexes, you jump to the right and only take a glancing blow from Amanda, which throws her off balance. Capitalizing on your position, you spin around and start pushing Amanda as she tries to regain her footing. Mayor Rob and Angela have perked up now, and with them willing you on, you somehow force Amanda to the edge of the platform, and with one final oomph, push her into the water. You've won immunity as your tribe kicks off a massive celebration doing cannonballs and dives into the water. You could all sense Mark at the nearest medical facility with a wide smile on his face. After Mare retakes her seat, the jury's decision is officially in. Each vote is worth even more than normal with the small 5-person jury. The first vote is for Rob, then a vote for Melissa, and then Melissa receives a second vote. Now knowing your best shot is forcing a tie, you lean forward only to see another vote for Rob, which officially eliminates you from contention. Barely caring who wins now, you close your eyes. You think to yourself that it would be great if the last vote was for you, which forces a tie, but it's not. And with a final reveal, Rob is crowned the winner of Survivor Branford. As Rob holds up a hand to thank the jury, you see that he looks a bit misty-eyed. You never knew that it meant so much to him. As disappointed as you are, you feel genuinely happy for Rob, and imagine the full-blown tears that would have been running down your face had it been your name on those pieces of parchment. The next day is clear, but extremely hot. You've noticed that your tribe is working too hard in the heat, which concerns you. Slow down, you tell Rob, who's fixing up the shelter. Take it easy, you advise Mare, who boils clothes. Relax a bit, why don't you, is ignored by Mark while he lugs firewood. At least Angela has the right idea as she sits out in the water. A little while later, there's just a few minutes left before you leave for the challenge, and you'd like to be productive. Angela offers taking a trip to the water well with you, just after Mark asks if you'd like to walk to the beach. Sensing a chance to have a 3, you convince them to both go with you. But where? The water well or the beach? Sorry, Mayor, you say. This is definitely not a move against you, but one to make sure our alliance holds. What happens next is not what you expected. You thought that of your 2 options, Mare would have been the more relaxed one about having her vote stolen. You couldn't have been more wrong. You traitor, Mare shouts. You always side with her, she says, motioning towards Angela. They need to be broken up right now, Mare continues. She gets up and huddles with Dennis, Amanda, and Melissa. After a minute, Mare realizes that this doesn't represent the numbers, as she's without a vote. "Hey Rob," she asks, "could you please join us?" Rob seems confused, and you try to keep him from going. But after being summoned again, he tells you he'll just be a minute and joins the conversation. But then as soon as it started, everyone is back in their seats and it's time to vote. This might be all up to Rob now, you think. And who does that group have their sights set on? That question's quickly answered, and it's for the worse. It's you. But as 3 votes for Dennis come out, you still think that everything will be okay. Just 1 vote left. Rob always has my back. Until he doesn't. "Wow," is all you could say stupidly. Mare looks oddly satisfied, while most of the others still seem to be figuring out what just happened. You try to get the last word in, only to see it shoved back in your face.
No, don't feel bad.
If there's anything you learned today, it's that Mare is short for nightmare. Hang on a second, you say. Everyone turns their attention towards you as you fish your idol out of its hiding place. Knowing that it could easily be you tonight, you're going to take that outcome off the board. This is an awesome feeling, you think. I hope I can find another of these. Red looks unhappy as you sit back down, and with good reason. The first 4 votes are all for you. Unsure of Melissa's motivations, you're glad that she's fed you this valuable intel. Savoring this moment that you know exactly what's about to happen while each member of Red sweats it out, the first vote for Joe is revealed. Only 2 more later, and you know you've made your mark on this game having played your idol correctly, and taking out a huge threat on the other side. Just as long as I don't replace Joe as that threat, you think, but for tonight, it's time to celebrate. Once Amanda arrives, you do something no smart Survivor player would recommend. You lose it. You hurriedly and angrily tell her that you call the shots, not her, and if it weren't for you, she'd have been voted out days ago. This is a duo, not a trio, and Melissa isn't invited. Amanda fires back, but you don't even listen, only thinking of stinging words to end the conversation with. Once you get a break from her vitriol, you simply say, "No wonder you have no allies," and walk away. It was dumb trying to work with her, you think to yourself. With only 1 move to play, you check in with Rob and Mare. They saw the fight and hope everything is okay. You brush that off and make sure that they're still down with the plan to vote Melissa out. They both assure you that it's all set and you don't need to hear any more. Great, you think. Everything is okay and enough time to take a long nap. Having squeezed in all the strategizing you wanted to do, plus a nap, you're feeling charged up at Tribal. Amanda wants to continue the fight, and you welcome it. The jury is loving it as the 2 of you go back and forth. When it's time to vote, you take no care to keep your voice down as you vote for Melissa, but continue to talk trash at Amanda. Once no idols are played, you actually start to feel sorry for Melissa for being collateral damage in this feud. The first 3 votes alternate between you and Melissa, which is no surprise. You know that this is the part where Mare and Rob make their voices heard and have your back. But in the shock of all shocks, the next words spoken are, the 8th person voted out of Survivor Branford, you. Instantly, you round on Rob and Mare, who wear sheepish looks. Amanda lets out a cliche, "You snooze, you lose," as you gather your things. Wanting the last word with her, you shake your head and criticize her for that being the best line she could come up with. But what you truly know, and what everyone else here does too, is that Amanda got the last word. You're already dreading America watching some months later you being humbled in this most spectacular fashion. Scooting away from the bush, you hope that it doesn't take you long to find Mare. Scanning the area, you see her lying on the beach down by the water. Just hoping that she isn't asleep, you hustle down to her. As you approach, she turns her head and sees you. Inviting you to take a spot next to her, she stretches and yawns. Needing her to quickly realize the gravity of the moment and that the window of opportunity may be closing, you tell her that she needs to come with you right now. She puts up a mild protest, but eventually finds herself walking alongside you back to the bush. Rob sees the two of you coming and holds a finger up in front of his lips. Taking the spot you had before, Mare settles in between you and Rob. You're relieved to hear that Dennis and Melissa are still talking about this idea to go after Mare. In that moment, you really appreciate the fact that Dennis is such a deep strategic thinker that he could talk for hours about moves in the game. A couple times Mare almost blows your cover. At one moment she starts to stand, until Rob puts a hand on her shoulder and guides her back into place. And at another, she opens her mouth to say who knows what before you quickly are able to shush her. A short time later, Dennis and Melissa end their conversation and go their separate ways. With your plan locked in now, you have Melissa and Dennis to thank for doing all the talking for you. As the sun begins to set, the quiet is disrupted by the loud voices of Mare and Melissa down near the water. Not wanting to hear this, but knowing what it's all about, you figure that you'll get the up-close version at Tribal Council. As the final five sits through another tribal, Mare isn't done labeling Melissa as a flipper, a betrayer of trust, and the sneakiest one out here. Melissa fights back, saying that she and Dennis talked about everyone and weren't singling her out. And that fib almost could have worked if it weren't for the fact that the rest of the tribe lay in hiding behind that bush. With even Dennis getting a little crafty and flipping his vote over to Melissa, she takes her unanimous vote out in stride. As she wishes everyone luck besides her smoking torch, Mare acknowledges it with a quick jerk of her head in the opposite direction and a flip of her hair. Note to self, you think, as you take stock of the now final four: don't cross Mare. Well, I'm not going home, you say. To stunned looks, you step forward and present your idol. With a smile stretched across your face, you stride back to your seat as your idol is confirmed to be real. I'll miss Mare's energy around camp, you think. But the first thing to come out of the urn isn't a vote for Mare. It's not even a vote for you. It's an idol nullifier. With a numbness spreading through your body, you see that the nullifier has indeed been played against you. You're too shocked to even notice Rob's glance at you and a shrug. Not even needing to see the votes, you start to pack up your things and grab your torch once it's official. The tribe has spoken. The challenge works where each tribe has to carry a heavy sled covered in sandbags, while one tribe mate rides on top. Once arriving at the finish line, the tribe mate who had been along for the ride will launch the sandbags at targets. The first tribe to hit all of their targets wins immunity. After some deliberation, the decision is made to have Eddie sit this one out. Knowing that this challenge is mostly mental, with a dose of skill, you get the ball rolling. The finish hole looks close, but you know it's a deceiving ways away, with many twists and turns in between it and where your ball currently sits. As the challenge progresses, everyone locks in on the task at hand, and all that can be heard is the sound of balls rolling with the occasional muttering from the castaways. After some trial and error, you can see what you need to do. Just follow this path, take a left, a quick right, and then head for the hole, you think. But just as you head for the home stretch, a victorious cry goes up from several table mazes down. Dennis has won immunity. That quickly, you think? His table maze must have been a lot easier than mine. Excuses aside, you wonder if putting your plans out in the open against Dennis earlier was the right move. It may have given him all that he needed to make quick work of this challenge. Back at camp, you get the feeling that you're damaged goods. The person who wants you out has just won immunity. No one has any kind of plan B. So many times during the game you could have wished for the peace and quiet you have right now, but this is a horrible time for that. Clearly no one is coming to me, you think. I need to go to them. Or maybe all I need is myself. Do you think your best course of action is to approach each player one by one? Or is your time best spent alone? With a small season and a jury only numbering 5, it's only going to take 3 votes to win. The first vote's revealed for Rob, and the second for Melissa. Your mind is already getting carried away, thinking that you're going to be shut out. but you break through with a vote which evens things up. And a second vote is shown for you. You can hardly believe it. You thought your final tribal performance was poor, but everyone is their own worst critic. And then as the last vote comes out, all you remember hearing is, "and the winner of," before you're on your feet celebrating the conclusion of this magic carpet ride you've been on. And after congratulating Melissa and Rob, and thanking the jury, you're thrilled to be taking your place among the other winners of Survivor Branford. Congratulations on a well-played game. You are the sole survivor. Telling Melissa that yes, you'll split the vote, she heads back to camp. Now in the privacy of trusted allies, you say what you're really thinking. You don't trust Melissa. The three of you need to stay strong and all vote for Dennis. Rob reminds you that he was the one who just talked to Melissa for an hour, and that he got good vibes. What are you basing your decision on? Just a gut feeling, you admit, but my gut has gotten me this far. Mare stays silent as you and Rob work out your differences. In the end, Rob acquiesces to you, as you say if the plan goes bad, you're going to be the one to pay, since you're Dennis's target, and Rob has the necklace anyway. So it's settled. 3 votes on Dennis, and hopefully Melissa proving her loyalty by casting a vote for Amanda. Tribal Council is uneventful, which is just the way you want it. Dennis wasn't able to use the time to stir anything up, or change any minds you're sure of. Casting your vote for Dennis, and delivering a killer voting confessional if you do say so yourself, you head back to your seat to await the verdict. But Dennis isn't as patient as you. He boldly stands up and produces a hidden immunity idol. Alarm bells begin going off in your head as you can only wish that he plays it for Amanda. He doesn't. Rob gives you a reproachful look as you put your head in your hands. 3 votes for Dennis later, you can only hope now that somehow you weren't the target. Before the moment of truth comes, a vote for Amanda is read. Now knowing that the split vote would have worked, you don't think you could take any more bad news. But ready or not, here it comes. A vote for you. Quickly doing the numbers, you realize that the only way you can survive is if Dennis turned on Amanda for no reason, or if she voted for herself. And neither of those far-fetched scenarios come to pass. You took your big swing, and missed spectacularly. Ugh, why didn't we all just vote for Amanda instead? Doing the quick math, you know it's going to be a race to 3 votes with the smaller than normal jury. Rob is already a third of the way there as he grabs the first vote. The second is for Melissa. Expecting the third vote for you, it's disappointing to see that it's a second vote for Rob. As Melissa gets a second vote, you hang your head, knowing that it's all over for your chances to win the game. You're already starting to debate internally if being a 0-vote finalist is worse than not having made it to the final 3 at all. But the fate of the 2 non-zero vote finalists still hangs in the balance. Rob and Melissa tense for the reading of the last vote. And it's for Melissa. In a first, all of the final 3 sits in a stunned silence once the final vote is read. After a few seconds, Joe breaks the silence as he stands up and applauds Melissa, and he's soon joined by the rest of the jury. This gets Rob and Melissa out of their trance as they stand up. Not even fully conscious of you standing up yourself or the pat on the shoulder you give to Melissa, all you can think about is what it was that turned your promising campaign into a distant third-place finish. Even though you work out regularly, this challenge is ridiculous. The sled's gotta weigh several hundred pounds. Rob's added weight on top only makes this tougher. You wish he'd not have purposely put on that extra weight before the game began. Later on, when thinking back on this challenge, you have no idea how you, Mark, Angela, and Mare ever got that sled to move 10 feet forward, let alone to the finish line, let alone before Red got there with its sled. Luckily for Rob, he's not the type to need encouragement from the rest of his tribe to perform his best, as you and the other 3 were practically laying on the ground with exhaustion. Unable from the ground to keep track of how Rob was doing shooting sandbags against Joe, instant rejuvenation was felt once Rob let out a cry and it was announced that Blue had won immunity. There's so much to distract you, but you mustn't lose your focus. Fighting the urge to engage with Amanda, sneak a peek over at Rob and Melissa, or look up to see if the storm shows any signs of letting up, you press on. After another hour, or maybe just a few minutes, Amanda makes the first move by offering you a deal. The deal is simple. Step off and she'll take you to the final 3. You thought that this challenge had only been taking a physical toll on you, but now you realize that it's had mental consequences as well. Thinking in slow motion, you mull over Amanda's offer. End this misery now and hope that you could take Amanda's offer to the bank, or press on for an unknown amount of time under continued physical duress, but keep fate in your hands. Under the gaze of finalists and jury alike, the challenge gets underway. Rule number 1, you think, is under no circumstances are you to look at how Rob is doing. With that, you remember Fire Making 101. First, lay down some coconut husk. Then, begin scraping magnesium off of the flint with your machete. Finally, strike the flint and hope that the husk catches a spark. It doesn't take long before a quick burning fire sits below you. Knowing that the husk burns fast and bright, you scramble to place some kindling on top to sustain the fire's life. But despite your efforts, the fire goes out. Okay, start over, you calmly think. This time, you're able to prolong the fire after the husk has burned away. Stacking sticks like a teepee, your fire starts to grow. You burn your finger arranging the sticks, but the adrenaline numbs the pain. Pausing, you finally glance at how Rob is doing, and your heart sinks to see that he's got a 3-alarm fire starting to nip at his rope. Blowing on the fire and adding more wood just won't grow it fast enough, and Rob's rope snaps, raising his flag. Feeling satisfied that you gave a respectable performance in the challenge, you know your time has come. But as you approach the front with your torch, you know that one more night spent on the beach would have been the ultimate satisfaction. Numbers rule in this game, you remember. It's time to see what the foursome is talking about. Though you hear your name as you approach, and see what looks to be Mayor shushing Mark, they tell you that Eddie is going to be the target. Wanting to hear more, Rob explains that though the challenge was close, it should have been a win if not for what seemed to be Eddie giving minimal effort. Angela then points out that if you let him get too far, he'll be a favorite in the end. Have they conveniently replaced my name with Eddie's in this explanation, you think to yourself? Regardless, without another choice, you agree with the plan to vote Eddie out, though you've grown to like him. Tribal Council is scary, despite the fact that you have an idol. Not wanting to use it so soon into the game, earlier that afternoon you decided you'd roll the dice and keep it in your pocket no matter what. And your gamble pays off, as Eddie's sent home in a 5-1 vote. Eddie grabs his torch and sees his game end just when it started. I will not be coming back here until the merge, you boldly predict. You're able to grab Joe and Melissa as they also noticed there was tension between Dennis and Steve. You get the feeling that Steve may be more of a wild card and don't think it would be wise to count on him as a solid ally. Melissa and Joe are nodding the whole time as you speak, which increases your confidence. You see Amanda and motion her over, filling her in on the plan to get rid of Steve. She's on board. As you all go your separate ways, you volunteer to find Dennis and tell him what's going on. It doesn't take long before you find him chopping down more bamboo. He's in disbelief that Steve thought it would be a good idea to build a multi-level shelter, complete with bathroom. This is Survivor, Dennis grumbles, not some HGTV show. Taking a step back as he gesticulates with the machete, you fill him in on the earlier discussion. He has no problem at all going for Steve, and is perfectly fine with the plan that was just discussed by everyone else. This Survivor thing is easy, you think, as during your walk back you pull a lime off of a nearby tree and throw it in your bag. And maybe it's not false confidence after all, as Steve is voted out unanimously at Tribal Council a few hours later. You're anxious as the challenge starts, since you know this is your chance to grab an idol, although in front of 10 other people. You were told that the idol is tied underneath the sled. Though the sled plus Rob weighs a ton, you barely notice as your mind is only thinking of the second phase of the challenge. Before you know it, and without being fully prepared to be honest, you've reached the finish line and Rob gets to work launching sandbags. Now is the time for you to get to work as well. Angela, Mark, and Mare are busy watching the rest of the challenge. Standing behind all three of them, they won't see you if they're staring straight ahead at Rob. But if any of them turn to see how Joe is doing, they'll spot you. As the challenge progresses, you observe that every 7 seconds Angela turns her head to watch Joe for 2 seconds, every 11 seconds Mark turns for 3 seconds, and every 13 seconds Mare turns for 4 seconds. This phase of the challenge started 30 seconds ago. You estimate that it'll take you 5 seconds to grab the idol. When should you make your move? Thinking this is a good chance to form a one-on-one bond, you follow Eddie into the jungle. Unfortunately, he isn't all that interested in bonding with anyone else except the idol. My idol, you gleefully think. Your attempts at conversation fall on deaf ears, and you curse yourself for not having gone with the group who you see is no longer near the water. My fate at tribal council may be entirely out of my hands now, you realize. Later on, you're able to catch up with the other members of the tribe, though never all at the same time. Each tell you that Eddie is the target, and their stories seem consistent enough to be believable. Though you have the idol, you really want to trust your tribe and not be in the position of having to use it so early. While tribal is scarier than it normally would be for someone with an idol, you're able to make it through, as Eddie is voted out unanimously. With a big sigh of relief, you can't help but feel happy that you got the truth from your tribe mates and still have an idol waiting to cause some damage later. After a couple hours, Melissa and Joe have returned to a now very tidy camp with a few small fish. Their excitement wakes Dennis, who sits up with a yawn. After taking compliments on your initiative to clean up, you think your chance has come. You tell everyone how Amanda has snuck away and has still not returned. Everyone's mind goes to the same place, and you all agree to see if you can sneak any information out of her later on. While eating the fish that evening, Melissa asks Amanda where she went. She says she was just after some time alone once she saw everyone else breaking off earlier. You see Joe and Dennis give each other a look. You ask Amanda if her time was well spent. She perks up and says yeah, it was exactly what she needed. Not sure how worried you should be by that response, you finish up with your fish bones and toss them in the fire. Oh no, that was a horrible decision, you think in a panic. I'm looking like a fool in front of everyone. You quickly get your mind right and try again. But with your hiccup, Blue has now taken a decent lead. And it's only several minutes later that Angela places the last piece for Blue as you watch them celebrate while you look at your tribe's half-completed puzzle. As the immunity idol is handed to Blue, the gravity of your situation sinks in. While heading to your camp for the first time, you're already panicking. There's nothing to go on other than challenge performance, and you were the worst at the first one. You need to find a reason to get someone else voted out. You think that you need more info, and decide to sit back for a little while and observe before you try to make any moves. And your idea works perfectly, as Steve and Dennis start bickering over how to make the shelter. You see a rift in the tribe that you can exploit. Perhaps the rest of the tribe will want to keep harmony by voting one of them out. It might be smart to keep the more experienced player, you think. Should you try to put the target on Steve or Dennis? Hang on a second, you say. Everyone turns their attention towards you as you fish your idol out of its hiding place. Knowing that crazier things have happened, you want to guarantee yourself a spot in the final 7. This is an awesome feeling, you think. I hope I can find another of these. Red looks unhappy as you sit back down, including Dennis. The first 4 votes are all for you. Now knowing Dennis's true colors, you thank the heavens that you had that idol. Savoring this moment that you know exactly what's about to happen while each member of Red sweats it out, the first vote for Joe is revealed. Only 2 more later, and you know you've made your mark on this game having played your idol correctly, and taking out a huge threat on the other side. Just as long as I don't replace Joe as that threat, you think, but for tonight, it's time to celebrate. Just one relaxing day, that's all you ask. Then you snap to your senses. If I wanted a relaxing day, I'd never have come out here, you think. Can we just take Dennis out, finally? You ask Rob over a rice breakfast. You know that Dennis is always a strategic threat in the game, and given that he hasn't won an immunity challenge yet, you think he could be primed to make a run. Meanwhile, down on the beach, Dennis is talking with Amanda. All of the noise you've been making lately at Tribal Council isn't sitting well with him, and it's time for you to go. As the morning continues on, with only 6 people in the game, word spreads fast and plans are shared. You hear that Dennis has been throwing your name out there, which furthers your desire to get rid of him. And Dennis hears that you've been leading the charge against him, which confirms his plans, as this time you're not even waiting until Tribal Council to inject your brand of chaos into the game. Everyone else, perhaps content with an easy spot in the final 5, starts to take a back seat to the showdown that started brewing between you and Dennis at camp this morning, with more to surely come at the immunity challenge, strategizing later, with the exciting conclusion to be had at Tribal Council. You all arrive at the challenge and eagerly look over the setup. Today's immunity challenge consists of navigating a ball through a table maze. The first to land their ball in the finish hole wins the challenge. Take a look at the maze that you're about to tackle. Entering from the bottom right, pick a path and follow it. What shape do you hit first? Running through the game Melissa's played, you know that she could get some big-time respect from the jury. Follow your gut, you remember, as your initial thought had been to target Melissa. Confirming your plan with Rob and Mare, and then confirming the fake plan with Amanda and Melissa, you feel set and take the time to do some chores around camp. As you tend to the fire, Mare double-checks where you're at. The vote's Melissa, you tell her. While you clean out the pots, Melissa wants to run through everything with you again. It's Mare, you say. Rob catches up with you at the water well to make sure nothing has changed. We're voting Melissa, you tell him. And as you pack up your bag for Tribal, Amanda wants to hear it one more time from you. The plan is still to vote for Melissa, you tell her. A few minutes later, you realize you got your wires crossed. You revealed the real plan to Amanda rather than the fake plan. Oh well, I guess Amanda found out the truth a couple hours earlier than she would have, you think. Remembering your faux pas at Tribal Council, you're very careful to choose your words so that no one gets suspicious about your intent. Breathing a sigh of relief, you make it through the discussion portion and walk over to cast your vote. You write Melissa's name down and then return to your seat. After everyone has voted, the final time to play an idol comes. Mare stands up. She's taking no chances and plays an idol for herself. You're surprised by this, but realize that some secrets in the game aren't even shared between allies. With nothing else to interrupt how this vote goes, you settle in. But that's just when Melissa stands up. She walks up and plays an idol that she says she's been holding on to for some time now. You're stunned and start to think ahead to what happens when all of the votes are cancelled. The first 3 votes are all for Melissa, and all don't count. Anticipating the next vote for Mare, you can't believe your eyes when you see it's for you. Desperate for a tie, you will that final vote to be for Rob, but your wish doesn't come true as a second and decisive vote for you is revealed. With a sense that you had it all and let it fall through your hands from one slip of the tongue, you receive your last rites and your torch goes dark. Thinking this is a good chance to form a one-on-one bond, you follow Eddie into the jungle. Unfortunately, he isn't all that interested in bonding with anyone else except the idol. Your attempts at conversation fall on deaf ears, and you curse yourself for not having gone with the group who you see is no longer near the water. My fate at tribal council may be entirely out of my hands now, you realize. As you turn to head back to camp, something catches your eye. It's a rolled up piece of paper protruding from a hole in a tree. Making sure Eddie isn't looking, you grab it. Running deeper into the jungle away from where you last saw Eddie, you rip open the piece of paper. It's a clue to an idol that's hidden at the next challenge. I just hope I see the next challenge as you note the irony of being voted out while in possession of this clue. You sweat it out at tribal, both from the raging fire in front of you and from the stress of being on the hot seat. Realizing how good the players are on your tribe, everyone answers the questions asked of them without giving too much away. Having had almost nothing to do with the way this vote is going, you silently pray that you get the opportunity to go back to camp and start fresh. And it turns out that your prayers are answered, as Eddie is sent home in a vote of 5-1. Not wanting to again experience the feeling of having had such a close call, you vow to let it drive you to play a better game going forward. As you all line up, the covers begin coming off of the plates. Pig snouts, scorpions, and worst of all, balut. The challenge is a nightmare. By random draw, Amanda ends up first. She can't even find it within herself to take a bite of the pig snout. Steve is up next, and seems to be doing okay with the scorpion, but inexplicably he starts to have an allergic reaction to it and sneezes out a whole mouthful, which gets him disqualified. Melissa gives the balut a solid effort, but is no match for Rob's speed. Just like that, the challenge is over, and Red is staring tribal council in the face. If there was a silver lining, at least you didn't have to eat any of those disgusting things. As you head into your camp, your mind is churning. In a paranoid daze, you think it's definitely going to be you. You need to find a reason to get someone else voted out. You think that you need more info, and decide to sit back for a while and observe before you try to make any moves. And your idea works perfectly, as Steve and Dennis start bickering over if Steve's allergic reaction was legit or just a reason for him to spit the scorpion out. You see a rift in the tribe that you can exploit. It might be smart to keep the more experienced player, you think. But who should the target be? Steve or Dennis? I need to step in, you say. You pull out your steal a vote advantage and announce what it does. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Ideally, you would have used this in a bigger spot, but keeping unity in your alliance comes first. You're very afraid that Angela is going to vote for mayor, so you can use this advantage to make sure her vote doesn't go awry. But on the other hand, you do have concerns about where mayor is going to be putting her vote. You've made your decision and announce it loud and clear. I'm going to be stealing the vote of... With a front row seat to something that's better than anything on TV, you remain alongside Rob and continue to eavesdrop on the conversation. Just as Dennis and Melissa are about to wrap it up, Melissa tells him to hang on a sec. She just got a better idea. She then makes the case to Dennis to vote you out. Now unable to move even if a bomb went off behind you, Dennis and Melissa get more and more enthusiastic about the idea to take you out. When they head deeper into the jungle, Rob asks what you're thinking. You say that you have to talk to Mare, as with Dennis's immunity win, all bets are off, and she may go along with a plan to vote you out. Arriving back to camp, you find Mare alone and napping. Needing to talk to her urgently, you start making noise around camp, hoping that it'll wake her up. She doesn't budge. You start calling her name, but it has no effect. Finally, you just go into the shelter and plop down forcefully next to her. You know, I don't appreciate that, says Mare. I hadn't been able to sleep well for days. Apologizing to her, you begin to paint Melissa as a villain who won't hesitate to vote either of you out. Though you could use Rob to corroborate your story, you're not sure where he is right now. Mare isn't sold that her fast friend Melissa would say such things, and she asks if you're sure you weren't just dreaming too. As you try to make Mare see the truth, Melissa comes into camp. Mare sits up and asks Melissa point blank if she was talking about voting her out. Of course not, Melissa says. Then she rounds on you. With acting skills you didn't know she possessed, Melissa puts on a great act of being hurt and accuses you of being jealous of her friendship with Mare. You begin to protest, but Mare doesn't want to hear it and asks you to leave. I'm not going anywhere, you say. With that, Melissa leaves and takes Mare with her. I hate stumbling into drama, you think. At Tribal Council, you and Melissa reprise your war, with Dennis sticking up for Melissa while Rob has your back. The same loyalty is shown in the voting, as 2 votes are read for you and 2 are read for Melissa, with only Mare's vote left to be shown. Just before the final vote is read, both you and Melissa glance at Mare at the same time. As you face forward, it's to the sight of a piece of paper with your name on it. Letting out a big sigh and feeling pity for Mare knowing she's in bed with a snake, you grab your torch. Taking a look over at the jury, Angela gives a wave while Joe's face tightens up. Amanda, perhaps still bitter, takes her hand and wipes off what's to be your seat going forward at Tribal Council. Oh no, that was a horrible decision, you think in a panic. I'm looking like a fool in front of everyone. You quickly get your mind right and try again. But with your hiccup, Blue has now taken a decent lead. And it's only several minutes later that Angela places the last piece for Blue as you watch them celebrate while you look at your tribe's half-completed puzzle. As the immunity idol is handed to Blue, the gravity of your situation sinks in. While heading to your camp for the first time, you're already panicking. There's nothing to go on other than challenge performance, and you were the worst at the first one. You need to find a reason to get someone else voted out. You think that you need more info, and decide to sit back for a little while and observe before you try to make any moves. And your idea works perfectly, as Steve and Dennis start bickering over how to make the shelter. You see a rift in the tribe that you can exploit. Perhaps the rest of the tribe will want to keep harmony by voting one of them out. It might be smart to keep the more experienced player, you think. Should you try to put the target on Steve or Dennis? Mare's not done. I'm okay giving that away because I have this, Mare says, as she pulls out a familiar-looking piece of parchment from her pocket. It's a steal a vote advantage, she says, and I'm using it to steal Angela's vote. At that moment, you don't even want a chance to look at Angela for fear that her look will cause you to drop dead on the spot. This whole thing has driven Mare to the other side, you conclude. Are you sure, Mare? Is all you can shakily say. Yes, is all you get back in return. As it's time to vote, you hope against hope that everything will work out. The first 2 votes are for Dennis. So far so good, you think, but you know there's still another shoe to drop. Then comes a vote for Angela, and another vote for Angela in identical handwriting. Why, Mare, you think? If Amanda, Melissa, and Dennis figured out what was going on, they could easily put 3 votes alongside Mare to knock Angela out. And with smart players like that, this is exactly what happens. The deed is done, and such a silly argument has blown the game up. In shock as you now sit among only 6, yet another torch is snuffed. You try to ask a million questions to Mare through your look, but she's too wrapped up in her satisfaction to pay you any attention. As you see Angela exiting Tribal Council, you wonder if you'll be doomed to take that walk next. The challenge works where each tribe has to carry a heavy sled covered in sandbags, while one tribe mate rides on top. Once arriving at the finish line, the tribe mate who had been along for the ride will launch the sandbags at targets. The first tribe to hit all of their targets wins immunity. You nudge Mare and tell her to have Dennis talk about all of the times he's been to Hawaii and how it compares to the island you're on now. She gives you a look and then turns to Dennis and opens her mouth. But it suddenly snaps shut as she eyes his napkin. "Look at the dolphin out in the ocean," she suddenly shouts. As everyone turns to look, she very quickly but very carefully slides a rolled up piece of parchment out of Dennis's napkin. Once everyone turns back to Mare questioning where the dolphin is, she says maybe she's had a bit too much wine. Mare turns to you and smiles, and you're not sure what it means. Does she think that you just helped her to get the parchment? Or was that the look of someone who knows you can't fool them that easily? Sensing no need to turn the afternoon on its head, you fake enthusiasm and tell Amanda that voting with her and Melissa against Mare is more than okay. Though you think you're being transparent, Amanda doesn't notice anything, maybe being caught up in the excitement of seeing just a few hours change your game dramatically for the better. As Amanda leaves you, you're smart enough to realize that nothing has really changed. You've worked with Mare and Rob for long enough to know that they're true to their word to vote against Melissa, so you could easily just stick with the two of them, deal with Amanda's wrath later once Melissa goes, and then vote her out tomorrow. As you walk down to the water, you stop in your tracks. Could voting out Mare actually be a good thing? If done right, it would put an ally on the jury and remove one of the bigger threats from the game. Though you didn't intend to be a swing vote here at the Final Five, you're ready to embrace it. And surprisingly, by the time you arrive back at camp just a few minutes later, your mind is already made up. What do you feel you should do at Tribal Council? Side with Amanda and Melissa to vote out Mare? Or side with Rob and Mare to vote out Melissa? I've got nothing other than the trust in Melissa and the others, you think. The votes are read, alternating between Joe and yourself. At least Melissa told me the truth about that, you think, which causes you to think maybe she's working with you after all. What a shame it would be to be voted out and really not have the slightest clue why. With 4 votes for Joe and 3 for you, you know the worst case scenario is a tie. But just wanting to get this over with now, you will the last piece of parchment to say J-O-E. And it does. You give Melissa a look of appreciation, while Joe, ever stoic, grabs his torch and hears the words that you hope are never spoken to you in this game. At camp the next day, the talk is only of a merge. With 8 players left in the game, you're sure it has to be now. As the morning progresses, you hear Mare give a shout. You abandon your nap, while Rob drops a big pile of firewood and Angela nearly falls out of the hammock. The 3 of you make your way towards Mare and can see what she sees. A boat with 4 indistinguishable figures is just edging over the horizon. As the boat gets closer, you can see Joe, Dennis, Melissa, and Amanda waving. I wonder what Steve did, you think, as the boat hits the shore. But that thought is quickly pushed out of your mind due to all the excitement in the air. It's time to merge. Throwing caution to the winds, you decide it's time to make your move. In one fluid motion, you bend down, reach under the sled, snatch the idol, and slip it in your pocket. Impressed with yourself, you're sure no one's noticed anything, as everyone is cheering Rob on. With the worst of it over, you cheer for Rob louder than you normally might. The thrill of finding an idol isn't even dented as you see Joe hit his last target before Rob does. Time for Tribal. You're able to grab Joe and Melissa as they also notice there was tension between Dennis and Steve. You get the feeling that Steve may be more of a wild card and don't think it would be wise to count on him as a solid ally. Melissa and Joe are nodding the whole time as you speak, which increases your confidence. You see Amanda and motion her over, filling her in on the plan to get rid of Steve. She's on board. As you all go your separate ways, you volunteer to find Dennis and tell him what's going on. It doesn't take long before you find him chopping down more bamboo. He maintains that Steve invented this allergic reaction, perfectly inserting air quotes into his accusation. This is Survivor, Dennis grumbles. Did he think a 5-star meal would be under those plate covers? Taking a step back as he gesticulates with the machete, you fill him in on the earlier discussion. He has no problem at all going for Steve, and is perfectly fine with the plan that was just discussed by everyone else. This survivor thing is easy, you think, as you gather a handful of firewood. And maybe it's not false confidence after all, as Steve is voted out unanimously at tribal council a few hours later. You wake up the next day in your tiny shelter. It did the job overnight, but it's a bit of a culture shock for you to be roughing it like this. That 2-story shelter with a bathroom sounds amazing right now, you think. Maybe I'll bring it up to a couple of the others, but definitely not to Dennis. After a quick breakfast, Red gathers up and heads off to the next immunity challenge. You gulp as you walk in and pray that your breakfast stays down. The gross food eating challenge. You notice that Amanda's face is looking a little green. That's definitely not sunburn, you realize. The luckiest person out of all of us may be Steve, who's probably getting his wish right now and enjoying a hamburger somewhere in his tricked-out shelter. Your lock doesn't budge. And seconds later, before your protesting eyes, Dennis completes his run to the final 3. After silently pouting all the way back to camp, you know options are limited. Dennis is going to target you. It would be easy for Mare and Rob to just join him. Rob pretty much tells you he's going to go along with this plan, and you yell at him for taking the easy way out. But there's always Mare. Prepared for the worst, you're very pleasantly surprised when she hints that she thinks Rob will be a bigger threat in the end than Dennis. Seizing the opening, you push her to vote alongside you against Rob. At least let us tie, you plead. She sincerely says she'll think about it. Your work done for the afternoon, you flop onto the beach and try to clear your mind. At tribal council, Rob says he's been converted by Dennis, to a great reaction from the jury. You then say that you still have one true ally left in Mare. She vocalizes the debate she's having of taking a free spot in the final 3 or forcing a tie to produce what might be a better outcome for her. In the end, Mare comes through in a big way. The vote ties, which forces you to take on Rob in a fire-making challenge. As you settle in behind your fire-making station, you know that this is going to be a tough assignment, as Rob is very proficient at making fire. But with a surge of confidence, you tell yourself that you're going to make that fire and put his out. Take a look at the Venn diagram. The circle on the left shows various castaways who have made it to the final 3 in Survivor Branford. The circle on the right shows castaways who have won a Final 4 tiebreaker challenge in Survivor. Only one person has done both things, made the Final 3 in Survivor Branford, and won a Final 4 tiebreaker challenge. But who is it? As you all line up, the covers begin coming off of the plates. Pig snouts, scorpions, and worst of all, balut. The range of emotions on the tribe varies from Joe, who looks unbothered as if he ordered the food himself, to Amanda, who has her hands over her face and is sneaking peeks through her fingers. Struck by inspiration, you rummage through your bag and find the lime. Quickly peeling it and handing pieces to everyone, you know that the taste of the lime will insulate the tribe from the nastiness that's about to come. With the challenge playing to 3, Joe steps up first and easily gets his scorpion down before Eddie. This doesn't tell you whether or not the lime made a difference, so you step up next. The pig snout proves no problem as the acidity of the lime is still very strong on your tongue. Mare had no chance. And in a sight that seemed incomprehensible just a couple minutes ago, Amanda draws on the power of the lime to get her balut down and win the challenge. Can we change our tribe color to green, you think? Because the lime is now our official mascot. Oh no, that was a horrible decision, you think in a panic. I'm looking like a fool in front of everyone. You quickly get your mind right and try again. But with your hiccup, Blue has now taken a decent lead. And it's only several minutes later that Angela places the last piece for Blue as you watch them celebrate while you look at your tribe's half-completed puzzle. As the immunity idol is handed to Blue, the gravity of your situation sinks in. While heading to your camp for the first time, you're already panicking. There's nothing to go on other than challenge performance, and you were the worst at the first one. You need to find a reason to get someone else voted out. You think that you need more info, and decide to sit back for a little while and observe before you try to make any moves. And your idea works perfectly, as Steve and Dennis start bickering over how to make the shelter. You see a rift in the tribe that you can exploit. Perhaps the rest of the tribe will want to keep harmony by voting one of them out. It might be smart to keep the more experienced player, you think. Should you try to put the target on Steve or Dennis? You decide it's now or never. It should have been never. You're seen by Mare. Unable to forget the look you received, you panic and aren't even able to grab the idol. You barely pay attention to the challenge, instead trying to think of a way out from your predicament as your mind races a million miles an hour. And as if karma was paying attention, Joe's able to hit his last target before Rob, giving Red immunity. Back at camp, you rush over to Mare to explain yourself. You don't even have a good lie ready. Your claim that you are going to share the idol with everyone seems paper thin, even to you. The cherry on top of the fail cake comes when you ask Mare to keep this between the two of you, and she replies with an unconvincing, "Okay." When you see Mare go off to talk to the rest of the tribe, you hustle over there to join. Rob tries to be polite and tells you that they need a minute without you. As you try to argue your case, Mare just points to camp and yells, "Go!" All afternoon you try and fail to get anything going with anyone else. Dying a slow death in Survivor is not the way to go out, you think a few hours later, as you stare at the smoke rising from your snuffed torch. With a small season and a jury only numbering 5, it's only going to take 3 votes to win. The first vote's revealed for Dennis, and the second for Mare. Your mind is already getting carried away, thinking that you're going to be shut out. But you break through with a vote which evens things up. And a second vote is shown for you. You can hardly believe it. You thought your final tribal performance was poor, but everyone is their own worst critic. And then as the last vote comes out, all you remember hearing is, "and the winner of," before you're on your feet celebrating the conclusion of this magic carpet ride you've been on. And after congratulating Dennis and Mare and thanking the jury, you're thrilled to be taking your place among the other winners of Survivor Branford. Congratulations on a well-played game. You are the sole survivor. No one questions your choice to swim. They must think I'm a pretty good swimmer, you think. Wait, it's more likely that no one wants to start a fight this early in the game, you realize as you come back down to earth. Steve ends up filling the role of puzzle maker. As the challenge begins, you have the utmost faith in yourself and your tribe. Melissa sets a good pace swimming out in the leadoff spot and quickly returns with a key for Steve. Joe is out next, and there's no drop-off as Red begins to open up a slight lead. It's now your moment in the spotlight, and so far so good. You make it to the platform and then climb the ladder no problem. Eyeing the 3 keys left, you notice that they all hang at varying distances. Your first thought is to go for the furthest one to make Amanda and Dennis's job easier and almost certainly win the challenge. But you know if you miss it, you'll almost certainly lose the challenge. The closest key is a sure thing, but grabbing it still leaves the challenge wide open for either tribe to win. Which do you go for? The furthest key hangs 10 feet away from you. With a running start, you know you'll be able to jump 15 feet, but a headwind will reduce your jumping distance by a foot for every mile an hour it blows. The wind has been varying in intensity according to the following pattern. The blank represents the wind speed at the time you jump. If the wind speed is more than 5 miles an hour, you'll fail to reach the furthest key. Should you go for it, or settle for the closest one? Finally feeling like an immunity challenge was made for you, you're quickly able to visually solve the maze. But now comes the hard part, raising and lowering the table to allow the ball to follow the path you've traced with your mind. There's a bit of a learning curve with the challenge. First, you're too slow to raise the table, and the ball scoots by the turn you wanted it to make. Later, you act a bit too fast and send the ball much further than intended down a path. Looking over, it's impossible to tell how anyone else, especially Dennis, is doing. This is good, you think. No distractions. As the ball inches closer and closer to the finish, your heart skips a beat as Dennis lets out a cry. But it's not a cry of victory. It's a cry of a close call as his ball circles the finish hole but doesn't drop in. Seizing your chance and steadying yourself, with one last push you force your ball into the finish hole and into the net below. Immunity never tasted so sweet, and the necklace is yours, all yours, for at least one day. Back at camp, you're surprised that the first person who wants to talk to you is Dennis. Not wanting to get taken in by his argument, you find yourself agreeing with him as he makes a compelling case to go after Amanda. The pitch sounds rehearsed, you think, but credit Dennis for thinking a move or two ahead. After you finish talking with him, you're not sure who you want to vote for. But you know what you can do? Amanda, you call it a few minutes later. A word? Amanda's face goes from tan to pink to red as you tell her everything Dennis just said to you. She doesn't even say anything before storming off. Perfect, you think. They're both gunning for each other now, and a big threat only has a few hours left in the game. Later on, while discussing your options with Mare and Rob, Melissa joins in. She's not blind to what's going on. We need to make a decision, she says. In this case, everyone defaults to the one with the necklace. Heavy is the neck that wears the necklace, you think. Okay, here's what we'll do, you start. What do you tell Melissa, Rob, and Mare? Is the plan to vote out Dennis or Amanda? Your lock doesn't budge. And seconds later, before your protesting eyes, Dennis completes his run to the final three. After silently pouting all the way back to camp, you know options are limited. Dennis is going to target you. It would be easy for Mare and Rob to just join him. Rob pretty much tells you he's going to go along with this plan, and you yell at him for taking the easy way out. But there's always Mare. Prepared for the worst, you're very pleasantly surprised when she hints that she thinks Rob will be a bigger threat in the end than Dennis. Seizing the opening, you push her to vote alongside you against Rob. At least let us tie, you plead. She sincerely says she'll think about it. Your work done for the afternoon, you flop onto the beach and try to clear your mind. At Tribal Council, Rob says he's been converted by Dennis, to a great reaction from the jury. You then say that you still have one true ally left in Mare. She vocalizes the debate she's having of taking a free spot in the final three or forcing a tie to produce what might be a better outcome for her. In the end, Mare comes through in a big way. The vote ties, which forces you to take on Rob in a fire-making challenge. As you settle in behind your fire-making station, you know that this is going to be a tough assignment as Rob is very proficient at making fire. But with a surge of confidence, you tell yourself that you're going to make that fire and put his out. Take a look at the Venn diagram. The circle on the left shows various castaways who have made it to the final three in Survivor Branford. The circle on the right shows castaways who have won a Final Four tiebreaker challenge in Survivor. Only one person has done both things, made the final three in Survivor Branford and won a Final Four tiebreaker challenge. But who is it? Pulling Rob aside as everyone goes their separate ways, you move away from camp into the jungle. A short way in, you stop and make your case for him to vote Melissa out. He doesn't pull any punches and says that you're not owed anything by him, especially after what went down at the last vote. Plus, he thinks there's a certain allure of going to the final three with Amanda and Melissa, and he likes his chances there. He says he'll consider your pitch, but not to get your hopes too high. At Tribal Council, you double down and lay out all the facts to Rob again. He takes it all in silence and refuses the opportunity to respond. He's ready to let his vote do all the talking for him. You can hardly stand the mounting tension as your vote for Melissa is read, followed by Amanda and Melissa's votes for you. You take a look at Rob, and he seems sure of himself. You don't know if you should feel good about that or not. Unable to take the waiting on Rob's vote any longer, in just a second the wait is over. And so is your game. Rob offers his hand, and you shake it. Melissa and Amanda give you respectful looks as you move to grab your torch. You knew you'd be up all night thinking about the final tribal council, but you had just hoped it would be on the other side of the game. Okay, we'll do it your way, you say, as Melissa smiles, while Rob slaps you on the shoulder. Easy for you guys to be happy, you think. Whether or not this plan works, you'll all be here tomorrow. At Tribal Council that night, an innocent comment by Mayor tips Dennis and Amanda off that their position is far worse than they thought. They proceed to spend the next 10 minutes arguing and making the case to the tribe to vote the other out. If only I could vote you both out right now, you think. When the time comes to play an immunity idol, you figure that if either Amanda or Dennis have one, it's about to make an appearance. But nothing happens. Great, you think. Here we go. Somehow you escape without any votes, as Amanda and Dennis have fully turned on each other. With the votes split 3-3, the two of them resume their arguments against each other and plead to the tribe. Nothing has changed though, and it's now time to execute part 2 of the plan. Swiftly and decisively, Dennis is voted out. After receiving acknowledgement of a hard-fought game, he heads to the front and his flame disappears under the cover of the snuffer. As he exits tribal council, your mind can't help but to imagine for the first time what it would be like to win this game. Even though the game has been going on for quite some time now, you hadn't noticed what a difference it could make for a single person to not be at camp. Things are a lot quieter and less fun around here without Angela, you think. Well, the former Red seems to be having fun, you notice, as laughs from Dennis, Amanda, Melissa, and Joe go up around the campfire. They probably think they're going to coast to the end. Well, not if I have anything to say about it. It's time to start having fun again. You talk to Rob and Mare, and it seems like the two of them still want to work with you against Red. Hey, Mare points out, it's still only going to take one of them flipping to get the numbers in this game. And we know who we shouldn't even consider wasting our breath on, says Mare, while flipping a glance up towards Amanda. The three of you decide to wait to try anything until after the immunity challenge, once things come more into focus and the daily scramble begins. The immunity challenge is purely endurance, not one of your strong suits. The challenge works where you stand on the edge of a platform overlooking the water. Both arms extend behind you with your hands holding onto a handle, and at regular intervals, more rope will be unspooled, increasing the stress on your arms. The last one left standing wins immunity. Knowing that you could definitely use immunity, you fight your hardest. You even outlast Melissa, and later Joe, who both hit the water with a splash. Reaching your limit, you take the plunge and can only watch how the rest of the challenge plays out. And in the end, Mare ends up winning the challenge. Despite being an ally, you struggle to come up with how her win helps you. During the afternoon, you go through the same song and dance as the last time. You, Rob, and Mare still think it would be wise to target Joe. Who from Red can we get to flip over with us? Can we fake them out and pretend one of us has an idol? And so on and so on. You do manage to have conversations with Amanda, Melissa, and Dennis, but not very productive ones. They're probably just humoring me, you think, so that they don't lose my jury vote. At Tribal Council, you give off an air of hopelessness. You lay it out as clear as can be. It's 4 versus 3 right now, and the 3 is in trouble. Someone could flip and try to improve their position, but does anyone have the guts to? As it's announced it's time to vote, you have one last trick up your sleeve. At the Merge Feast, were you lucky enough to grab the steal a vote advantage, or did that opportunity pass you by? Wishing Amanda, Joe, and Dennis good luck, you take your spot as a distributor. The challenge is slow-paced but tense. Looking at the weight bearers, you realize that this challenge may be the one with the biggest disparity in effort required by role. Though you strategically place your weights and cause Mare, and later on Mark, to drop, Rob is holding tough. Despite continuing to load Rob up with weight, he doesn't even show signs of fatigue. This guy is nuts, you think. And while Rob is busy being Superman, you see Amanda drop out of the challenge. Joe drops out a few rounds later, as the beam across Rob's back seems more likely to break than he does. And hope as you might, Rob's might is just too much for Red as Dennis finally steps out of the challenge. Rob drops his weight to a hero's ovation from Blue as at long last they've won their first challenge. Back at camp, and facing tribal council for the first time, no one says a word. We've become such a tight-knit group it'll be hard to vote anyone out is the sentiment. And later, in an emotional and very open tribal council, it's publicly decided that Steve will be voted out, and he takes the news quite well. He gets one last laugh out of everyone with his Gamecock call as he stands up to gather his torch. To goodbyes from everyone, Steve makes his way down the dark path. You wake up the next day to cannon fire. You roll over knowing that your thin blanket will shield you from any harm. But in your sleepiness, it takes you a minute to notice that you're not under attack at all. Our shelter would have been blown sky high, you smartly conclude. Sitting up, you discover the source of the ruckus is only Joe hammering in some loose beams. Disgusted that he couldn't wait until after you woke up, you seek support, but realize that everyone else is already up. Oh well, you think. With the tribes even, I need the extra rest to save my strength. Today is going to be a big one. As you arrive to the challenge, you see that it's the classic weight-bearing challenge, shoulder the load. 3 people will have to hold as much weight as they can on a pole across their back, while 2 others from the opposing tribe strategically assign weight to be borne at regular intervals. And with Steve and Brittany having been voted out, you know that whichever tribe wins this challenge will control the numbers. I'm definitely not the strongest on my tribe, but am I one of the 3 strongest, you wonder? Look at the images on the screen. The first letter of each will spell out advice about which role you should take in the challenge. So what's it going to be? Weight bearer or distributor? At Tribal Council, you go into a great deal recounting your victory earlier in the day. We were all there, says Melissa, and you have to admit she has a point. Maybe it's best to hush up for a little. Dennis and Amanda now take center stage, each making a case to vote the other out and maintaining no illusions that it's going to be one of the 2. Mind already made up, you head over to cast your vote. Getting maybe a little of that normalcy you crave, no one plays an immunity idol. Predictably, the first 2 votes come one each for Dennis and Amanda. And when that third tie-breaking vote comes, it's just as you wanted. Dennis. And after 2 more votes for Dennis are revealed, you feel like it's another notch in your belt. With a simple good game, Dennis's latest post-merge run ends in a trail of smoke. With no major gaffes made in the challenge to this point, the puzzle-making portion remains close and intense. Angela sure is no slouch at puzzles, as you steal a look at her progress. But Red's slight lead is held up through the challenge, and as the last piece of the puzzles fit into place, with a rush of excitement, you know that none of you will be the first to go home. Going to your tribe camp for the first time, you find that everyone is very friendly. You couldn't have asked for a better tribe, you think? Not facing tribal, it's been a total group mentality, and no one has run away to strategize or look for an idol. Later that day, after everyone is settled in and everything is organized, people begin to pursue their own interests. Joe asks if anyone is interested in exploring the island with him, while Amanda wants to take a stab at going fishing. Who do you go with? Without water, Mark is fading fast and risking serious dehydration. Mercifully, the challenge comes to an end as Steve tags you. But this is the least of your problems. Medical's already rushing in to treat Mark, who's only murmuring about keeping Blue strong at this point. They confirm that with proper care, Mark will be fine. However, that proper care can only occur at the nearest hospital. With teary goodbyes all around, Mark is put into a helicopter and taken away. You do receive the news that Tribal Council will be cancelled due to Mark's medevac, but it does little to lift your spirits. Under the gaze of finalists and jury alike, the challenge gets underway. Rule number 1, you think, is under no circumstances are you to look at how Rob is doing. With that, you remember Fire Making 101. First, lay down some coconut husk. Then, begin scraping magnesium off of the flint with your machete. Finally, strike the flint and hope that the husk catches a spark. It doesn't take long before a quick burning fire sits below you. Knowing that the husk burns fast and bright, you scramble to place some kindling on top to sustain the fire's life. But despite your efforts, the fire goes out. Okay, start over, you calmly think. This time, you're able to prolong the fire after the husk has burned away. Stacking sticks like a teepee, your fire starts to grow. You burn your finger arranging the sticks, but the adrenaline numbs the pain. Pausing, you finally glance at how Rob is doing, and your heart sinks to see that he's got a 3-alarm fire starting to nip at his rope. Blowing on the fire and adding more wood just won't grow it fast enough, and Rob's rope snaps, raising his flag. Feeling satisfied that you gave a respectable performance in the challenge, you know your time has come. But as you approach the front with your torch, you know that one more night spent on the beach would have been the ultimate satisfaction. Reaching underneath the pile of buffs, you grab the one most buried by the others. As you hold it and wait for everyone else to make their selection, you try to force as much good energy from your mind into your hand into your buff. When it's time to unwrap it, you find a soft red buff in your hands. Everyone is peering around to see who holds the same color, and you're no exception. With feelings of eagerness and maybe intimidation, you see that Dennis, Joe, Steve, Amanda, and Melissa will be joining you on your tribe. Quite pleased with your group, you aren't too bothered by the formidable opposition of Rob, Mark, Eddie, Brittany, Angela, and Mare. Before you can say one word to your new tribe, the first challenge is announced to be taking place immediately. For the first challenge, 5 players will have to swim out to a platform one at a time, climb a ladder to a higher platform, and jump off while grabbing a key tied to a pole above them. The player who remains on the beach will have to use all the keys to open a chest and solve a puzzle. The first tribe to complete their puzzle wins immunity. As your tribe strategizes before the challenge, no one has stepped up to be the puzzle maker. You figure that it's a high-risk position in that you can be the hero or be the one that loses the challenge for the tribe. As people in the circle offer their opinion, it's your turn to speak. What do you say? Swimmer or puzzle maker? The second to last day dawns with a very unlikely final 4. Rob, Melissa, Amanda, and most importantly, you. Your rehearsed apology to Rob goes out the window when he very smartly takes the high road and tells you he respects the move you made and doesn't need any kind of an explanation. You know Rob's a stand-up guy, but also think he might just be trying to cover himself in case he needs your help later. But you know that won't be necessary. You still have a bad taste in your mouth from having been strong-armed at the last vote by Amanda. If she realizes the corner she boxed you into and explains that to the jury, it would invalidate most of the arguments you could make about why you're more deserving than she is. She greets you warmly the first time you bump into each other, but she has no idea of the true feelings you're harboring. Namely, it being your top priority that Amanda does not win immunity. In a surprise, Survivor has reached way back into its history for the Final 4 immunity challenge. The challenge is simple. The 4 of you must each stand on a stump with a hand on the immunity idol. The one who endures the longest guarantees their spot in the final 3. The 4 of you are lucky that conditions are cool and overcast today. Time goes by at a snail's pace, but after 2 hours no one has dropped out yet. The challenge begins to get a little more difficult as rain starts to fall. 20 minutes later, Melissa decides to step out, not because of the rain, but because of the roasted chicken that's been brought out as a temptation. You can't tell if the speed at which she's eating the chicken is more due to hunger or not wanting it to get soaking wet. Another hour goes by, and the rain has only picked up in intensity. Not too long after you question your remaining stamina, you catch a huge break as Rob slips off of his perch. In an epic moment, you look up, water running down your face, and stare into Amanda's eyes. You tell her that you'll never give up. Amanda, with dripping hair strewn across her face, tells you to bring it on. The only goal in this immunity challenge is to outlast. How many times does the word outlast appear in this word search? As day breaks on the final five, you feel like this is as good as it gets. The most solid thing left in the game right now might just be you, Rob, and Mare, while Amanda is largely allyless, and Melissa has just been a wild card and never one to stay in any alliance. Amanda is still testy over breakfast, but her plight gives you inspiration. If she has no allies left, why don't I become her top ally? This'll give me even more flexibility in making my way to the end. Later in the morning, you approach Amanda, and before you can open your mouth, she says that she's not in the mood to hear it. Assuring her that you're not here to offer yet another of the insincere apologies she's been receiving all day, you get down to business. As you explain your plan to work together, and that a duo is so powerful at this phase, she goes from stone-faced, to a tight-lipped smile, to a toothy smile, to a toothy smile with vigorous head nodding. After this chat, you can see that her whole outlook on the game has changed. As you head into the immunity challenge, you know that a win here would take what's already a great day and turn it into a perfect day. The challenge works where you need to swing a rope with a metal ball on the end through a metal contraption over and over until you clang against one of the walls, knocking your totem off its stand. The last person with their totem still upright wins the challenge. As the challenge begins, you quickly realize that this is not your forte, and the loud sound of metal on metal confirms this to the world and results in you being the first to take a spot on the sit-out bench. You cheer a little bit for everyone in order to not play favorites, and when all is said and done, Amanda wins immunity for the first time and wears the necklace proudly. On the walk back to camp, you think through your options. All roads seem to point to Melissa going home. Mare and Rob would surely support this. Amanda's excited to be aligned with you and doesn't seem to be particularly close with Melissa. Taking a short break at camp to tend to the fire, Melissa excitedly approaches you. You can't believe what you're hearing, as she thanks you for pulling her into a group with you and Amanda to vote out Mare. You nod and tell her that the two of you probably shouldn't be seen talking. After she hurries away, you put two and two together. You've given Amanda an inch, and she's taken a mile. Your motivation in aligning with her was to have flexibility at the final four, in case Mare and Rob made a move against you. Not for her to start calling the shots. You'd vote her out now if you could. Trying to suppress your frustration, you review everything again and know that it's best to target Melissa. And without a great opportunity to compose yourself, here comes Amanda. As she gets closer and closer, you have to make up your mind about how to handle this conversation. Do you confront Amanda over bringing Melissa in without your permission, or do you pretend like everything's okay? The next morning you wake up to no fire and no breakfast. A painful lesson of what happens when you vote out the main provider at camp. No matter, you think, I'd trade all the food we have here for being on the right side of that last vote. You feel that eventually someone will break and get the fire going, but everyone else is thinking the same thing. Some don't act out of laziness, some out of not even knowing how to start a fire, while some appear to be downright protesting Joe's vote out. At least the challenge shouldn't last too long, you think, as there's hardly any energy to go around. The goal here is to play keep away. Under no circumstance is Dennis or Amanda allowed to win immunity. You're not too sure about where Melissa's loyalty lies right now. The challenge works where you stand on the edge of a platform overlooking the water. Both arms extend behind you with your hands holding onto a handle, and at regular intervals, more rope will be unspooled, increasing the stress on your arms. The last one left standing wins immunity. Your tough words from before about who wins the challenge are shattered by the pure difficulty of it. Try as you might, you end up taking an awkward dive about halfway through the challenge. As you spectate the rest of the challenge, things play out perfectly as it comes down to Mare and Angela. With numb arms and empty stomachs, both try to strike up a deal, but to no avail. From your spot, you shout over that the hard work has already been done. Immunity is on our side, and it doesn't matter who wins. Angela jumps all over this and says that Mare will have plenty of opportunities to win immunity, but this will likely be the only time she'll ever be able to win one. Mare refuses to drop, and Angela starts to shift uncomfortably. After not much longer, Angela falls out of the challenge, and Mare has won immunity. As the necklace is awarded to Mare, 5 pairs of hands clap for her, while Angela's stay planted to her hips. Back at camp, you notice that something's wrong immediately. It should have been so simple. The road's been paved for Dennis or Amanda to be voted out now, but the top priority has become fixing this pothole that's Angela and Mare. Angela's still quite unhappy that Mare wouldn't take a dive for her. She's supposed to be my friend, Angela says. If it truly didn't matter which one of us won that challenge, she would have done that favor for me. Mare might have other motives. You try to remind Angela about Mare's competitive streak, but she's not having it. Angela does confirm, though, that she's voting for Dennis, which is the most important thing. Later on, you find Mare. All she's willing to say is that this is Angela's problem. Did she think we came all the way out here just to throw challenges to each other? Despite the frustration, Mare's also on board to vote for Dennis. Well, that's kind of resolved, you think, although you notice that Angela and Mare are still keeping their distance from each other. And with no one having eaten today still, nerves are definitely frayed. The tribal council discussion centers around today's drama. Mare knows that she can still choose to give up the immunity necklace if she wants to. And shockingly, she does. Angela, with a smile, reaches out to take the necklace, only to see it pass beyond her to Rob. Angela is fuming now, and Mare says that what happened at the challenge was nothing personal, and the goal was accomplished by keeping immunity away from Dennis or Amanda. Immunity is still on their side, and now without the necklace, she and Angela are equals again. You wish that Mare consulted you on this, and you can't shake the feeling that something bad is about to happen. At the merge feast, were you lucky enough to grab the steal a vote advantage, or did that opportunity pass you by? Wait a minute, this tree is definitely not the same as the one in the picture. All the trees out here look similar, but with a trained eye you can spot the difference. Looking at the paper, you try to figure out which tree is the one. And then you see it. Unmistakable, with its little bend in the trunk and roots protruding every which way. Hoping Amanda wasn't already here, the investigation begins. The ground is too rocky here, so digging is out. The tree doesn't offer any footholds, so no two-legged creature could climb this thing, you realize. Around the backside, you see an opening in the tree right at ground level. Crouching down, you stick your hand in and hope that it comes out in one piece. Feeling around, you only touch damp wood. As your hand drifts along the top, you feel something that's definitely not natural. Heart hammering, you grab it and give it a big pull. Having overestimated how tight it was wedged in there, it comes loose immediately as you fall backwards out of your crouch. But it's still in your hand. The hidden immunity idol. After doing a silent victory dance and taking a few calming breaths, you know your work is done and return Amanda's paper to the base of the imposter tree. Bring it on, Merge, you think, as you and your new closest ally head back to camp. You awaken the next morning full of energy and wanting to seek out Mare and Rob. With excitement, you barge into their conversation to tell them your plan. Vote Dennis out? They both ask in a monotone. Yes, you reply, slightly taken aback. But it shouldn't have come as a surprise, since you've been leading this charge for several days now. Plus, who else would the three of you be able to talk about? Arriving to the final immunity challenge, everyone looks around in awe at what's been laid out before you. The challenge consists of running to various stations to collect bags of numbers. After collecting the bags, you'll have to run them to the top of a very tall tower. The numbers allow you to open a combination lock and raise your flag. The first to raise their flag will win immunity and signify that they're going to the final 3. As you line up to begin the challenge, you try to flash Dennis your most intimidating look. Judging by his reaction, it doesn't have the desired effect. As the challenge progresses, Dennis is having no trouble flying through the course. It's at this time you resort to more desperate measures. Greatly hurting your own chances, you decide to tail Dennis. When he arrives at a station to untie his bag, you bump him and try to slow him down. As he's climbing to the top of the tower, you don't let him pass you on the stairs. These annoyances add up, and Dennis loses the lead to Rob. But the lock proves to be the great equalizer. Rob hasn't yet gotten the right combination, and Dennis and you are right back in it. Short of holding the pin so that he can't release his slag, there's not a foolproof way of keeping the necklace from Dennis. As Mare gets to work on her lock, and with this challenge rapidly coming to a close, you have time to try one combination of numbers before someone else is bound to win. Saying a quick prayer, you arrange your numbers and give the pin a pull. Which combination of numbers did you try? Wishing Amanda, Joe, and Dennis good luck, you take your spot as a distributor. The challenge is slow-paced but tense. Looking at the weight bearers, you realize that this challenge may be the one with the biggest disparity in effort required by role. You decide that it would be best to spread the weight evenly rather than load up on any one person as Blue is doing. After a few rounds, you've put 40 pounds on Mark, Mare, and Rob, while Blue has elected to put all 120 pounds on Joe. While Joe struggles to stay in the challenge for as long as possible, Dennis and Amanda look bored standing there with just a pole across their backs. After a few more rounds, each member of Blue has 60 pounds, while Joe himself has 180. Blue seems to be getting frustrated that they can't break Joe, while all of their members are starting to feel the burden. Mark drops out, which adds to their plight. You even think you see Angela starting to get more aggressive and dropping more weight onto Joe with little care in order to get him to drop. Despite Joe eventually dropping out at 200 pounds, you appreciate his effort, as not only did he outlast Mark, but the current situation of the challenge stands at Mare and Rob having held 60 pounds for several minutes, while Amanda and Dennis have yet to receive any weight. And despite all of Mare's mental strength and Rob's desires to win, both eventually run out of stamina and drop out of the challenge before either Amanda or Dennis are really tested. You see Melissa, Amanda, and Dennis running towards you to kick off the post-challenge celebration. Bracing for the group hug, you're disappointed to see all three of them run right past you and begin celebrating with Joe, who's recovering a short distance behind. Feeling like your brilliant strategy has been totally overlooked by the tribe, you join in the celebration. Better him being looked at as a challenge threat than me, you think, as Amanda, Melissa, and Dennis play to King Joe, offering him double portions of rice for dinner and the best sleeping spot in the shelter for the night. Your lock doesn't budge. And seconds later, before your protesting eyes, Dennis completes his run to the final three. After silently pouting all the way back to camp, you know options are limited. Dennis is going to target you. It would be easy for Mare and Rob to just join him. Rob pretty much tells you he's going to go along with this plan, and you yell at him for taking the easy way out. But there's always Mare. Prepared for the worst, you're very pleasantly surprised when she hints that she thinks Rob will be a bigger threat in the end than Dennis. Seizing the opening, you push her to vote alongside you against Rob. At least let us tie, you plead. She sincerely says she'll think about it. Your work done for the afternoon, you flop onto the beach and try to clear your mind. At Tribal Council, Rob says he's been converted by Dennis, to a great reaction from the jury. You then say that you still have one true ally left in Mare. She vocalizes the debate she's having of taking a free spot in the final three or forcing a tie to produce what might be a better outcome for her. In the end, Mare comes through in a big way. The vote ties, which forces you to take on Rob in a fire-making challenge. As you settle in behind your fire-making station, you know that this is going to be a tough assignment, as Rob is very proficient at making fire. But with a surge of confidence, you tell yourself that you're going to make that fire and put his out. Take a look at the Venn diagram. The circle on the left shows various castaways who have made it to the final three in Survivor Branford. The circle on the right shows castaways who have won a Final Four tiebreaker challenge in Survivor. Only one person has done both things, made the final three in Survivor Branford, and won a Final Four tiebreaker challenge. But who is it? You're anxious as the challenge starts, since you know this is your chance to grab an idol, although in front of 10 other people. You were told that the idol is tied underneath the sled. Though the sled plus Rob weighs a ton, you barely notice as your mind is only thinking of the second phase of the challenge. Before you know it, and without being fully prepared to be honest, you've reached the finish line, and Rob gets to work launching sandbags. Now is the time for you to get to work as well. Angela, Mark, and Mare are busy watching the rest of the challenge. Standing behind all three of them, they won't see you if they're staring straight ahead at Rob. But if any of them turn to see how Joe is doing, they'll spot you. As the challenge progresses, you observe that every 7 seconds Angela turns her head to watch Joe for 2 seconds, every 11 seconds Mark turns for 3 seconds, and every 13 seconds Mare turns for 4 seconds. This phase of the challenge started 30 seconds ago. You estimate that it'll take you 5 seconds to grab the idol. When should you make your move? With your top priority to locate Melissa, you can't find her anywhere. Funny how she's always been around when you don't need her. The water's quiet, so she's not out fishing. She's not at the water well. And after looking up and down the beach as far as the eye can see, still nothing. Just as you're thinking of who you should talk to as a backup plan, Melissa emerges from the jungle alone, if you don't count the 20 pounds of firewood she must be hauling. Offering to give her a hand, you walk with her back to camp to unload all the firewood. The two of you go down to the water's edge to wash up, and you have your chance. You tell Melissa that in winning immunity today, her former tribe has realized that they've underestimated her and would be looking to vote her out sooner than later. You've heard no such conversation, but it could make sense, and you've convinced yourself that it would be true. Melissa considers this, and you mention that she does hold a lot of power by wearing the necklace. She thanks you for opening her eyes to the situation and heads off. It's hard for you to tell how that conversation went, you think. I hope she's on my side. Right before Tribal Council, Melissa mentions to you that you're going to be the target of the former Red Tribe tonight. Not knowing why this would possibly be true, you ask her for details, but she doesn't give any. She only says she thought she'd pay you back for before, and admits that her mind isn't fully made up yet. Welcome to the merge, I guess, you think as you head off to gather your things together. Tribal Council plays out in a way where it seems as if nothing will change from where everything left off at camp. Just hoping that the target hasn't landed on you, everyone casts their vote, and it's announced that any hidden immunity idols should be played now. At this stage of the game, do you have an idol or not? Numbers rule in this game, you remember. It's time to see what the foursome is talking about. Though you hear your name as you approach, and see what looks to be Mare shushing Mark, they tell you that Eddie is going to be the target. Wanting to hear more, Rob explains that though the challenge was close, it should have been a win if not for what seemed to be Eddie giving minimal effort. Angela then points out that if you let him get too far, he'll be a favorite in the end. Have they conveniently replaced my name with Eddie's in this explanation, you think to yourself? Regardless, without another choice, you agree with the plan to vote Eddie out, though you've grown to like him. Tribal Council is scary, especially in your first visit. As everyone answers questions, you have a growing suspicion that this Eddie plan is fake, and that it's going to be you. But it also seems like Eddie is a little out of the loop himself, and you know he's not that good of an actor. Luckily, it turns out that there was nothing to worry about, this time at least, as Eddie is voted out unanimously. Eddie grabs his torch and sees his game end just when it started. I will not be coming back here until the merge, you boldly predict. With nothing in your pockets, you can only hope that the situation is the same for everyone else. You look up, down, behind you, and across the group, and no one moves. In the clear, you think. But then at the very last minute, Amanda stands up. She must really be paranoid, you think. Our offer to Amanda was as legit as it gets. How could she think she's in any danger? But Amanda has other things in mind, and announces that she's playing her idol for Joe. Joe nods approvingly, while your jaw hits the floor. The former blue rounds on you, and you instantly regret telling them that there was no need for any of them to talk to Amanda, as you said you had the situation under control. And after 4 votes that don't count for Joe are read, all you can do is brace yourself for the next one. Angela. Fighting your instincts to turn and look at her, you instead find an interesting piece of the ground to focus on, and you don't lift your head until you hear Angela's footsteps die away. At dawn, you're awoken by a messenger who's come to your camp by boat. Joe takes the rolled up note and reads it aloud. Grab all of your possessions and get on the boat, it says. Everyone loses it with excitement. 5 minutes later, everyone's crammed onto the boat and is on their way to Blue's camp. When you arrive, no one is there. They must have gotten the message, you think. Either that or they're not the friendly people you thought they were. But before you can get very far, Angela, Mare, and Rob come walking from around the bend, beaming. Angela holds a basket with new purple buffs, alongside Mare, who carries 2 buckets of ice filled with wine and beverages. Most excitingly, Rob brings up the rear, single-handedly hauling a massive tray of food. Here's to the merge. Keeping a safe distance behind Amanda, you don't let her out of your sight. It helps that she's wearing a bright pink tank top. As you continue to follow, you notice that she's holding something in front of her face and letting it guide her. Pausing to crouch behind a bush, you see that she's stopped and is investigating a tree. After a period of time, she moves on. Once you've ensured that she's not coming back, it's your turn to investigate the tree. Amanda must really have been in a hurry since she dropped her paper. Picking up the piece of paper, you eagerly look it over. On the left is Amanda's clue, which shows a tree where a hidden immunity idol is located. On the right is the tree you're standing in front of. If you're in the right place where the idol is hidden, the 2 images will be identical. But if there's even one difference, you should move on and continue your search elsewhere. So what do you think? Is this the spot where the idol's hidden? Thinking fast, you hop left, only to be clobbered in the face by Amanda's blow. Trying to regain your senses and get rid of the popping lights you see, you dig in. But Amanda has you where she wants you and is not to be denied. The last thing you see before hitting the water is Amanda's triumphant face. Back at camp, you feel terrible. Of the 3 points the tribe lost at the challenge, you were responsible for 2 of them. While everyone tells you there's no need to apologize, you still can't shake the feeling that it's going to be you. Even though Rob talks to you about forming a tight duo to vote Mare out, you still can't help but feel that he's just trying to throw you off. He says he'll bring in Angela and make it happen. At Tribal, everyone plays like they don't know what's happening, but you notice that Mare's face doesn't match the confused words coming from her mouth. You look over at Rob, who nods to you, and then back at Angela, who gives you a smile. After casting your vote for Mare, you nervously await your fate. As the time to play an idol comes, you have to weigh your trust in Rob versus your instincts that it's going to be you. If you have an idol, do you play it? Or do you hang on to your idol, or not have one to begin with? Taking the bottle of wine, you refill Joe's glass. Handing Joe the bottle, you tell him that Dennis was looking for some too. As Joe hands Dennis the bottle, he appears confused, as he doesn't drink. As Dennis and Joe are sorting out the miscommunication, you make a move towards the heaping pile of brownies. Pretending to deliberate over which one you want, your hand slowly sneaks towards Dennis's napkin. Just as Dennis is about to turn back in your direction and catch you red-handed, Rob asks him if he could pass the bottle his way. And just a few seconds later, you have everything you want, the piece of parchment and a brownie. Cheerfully telling Rob to go ahead and finish the bottle, you excuse yourself from the table. While enjoying the brownie, you unroll and read the parchment. A steal a vote advantage. How cruel would it be if I had to use this on Dennis, Joe, or Rob, you think, as each was unknowingly a big part of the reason you now have it. No time like the present, you figure. Walking back into camp with your bag slung over your shoulder, you're pleased to find everyone else there. Where were you? We were beginning to get worried, asks Mare. Since no one here was interested in talking to me, I had other business to attend to, you answer. Amanda perks up at that. Business, she asks. Business, you say. Throwing your bag down, you head to the ocean to wash up. Trying not to be obvious, you don't give camp a backward glance until you get to the water. Take the bait, you think. Once you're far enough away, you chance a backward glance and can't help but to smile. Even from this distance, you can tell that Amanda is going through your bag in front of a captivated audience. Never thought I'd be looking forward to Tribal Council tonight, you think. At Tribal Council, you don't dodge or deflect. You make it clear to everyone that you're going home. That is, unless things change, you add mysteriously. As you go to vote, you think you've handled everything right. If I was hoarding a real idol, I wouldn't tell anyone. No one would see it until I played it. So by not showing it, or saying anything at Tribal, I've legitimized my story, you think. If only everyone thought like you. Moments later, as you're packing up, you try to inject some humor into the situation by slipping your fake idol around your neck. We almost believed you, Melissa can't help but to say. But the fact that you had more twine and the rest of the unused paint in your bag kinda gave it away. Wishing you had destroyed the evidence hours ago, you reach into your bag and find the offensive purple paint. I sure hope this stuff isn't flammable, you think, as you prepare to toss it into the fire. For some reason, the buff sitting directly on the top of the pile calls to you. Your nerves cause you to squeeze it tighter than you normally would as you watch the remaining castaways make their selections. Once everyone has made a choice, the moment of truth has come. As everyone begins opening their buff, you fumble with the package for a minute before finally starting to make progress on the unwrapping. Hopefully struggling with this simple task isn't a bad sign of things to come with the challenges, you think. With the buff open, you look down and you see a brand new blue buff in your hands. Everyone is already beginning to compare notes, and you look around in awe at your tribe mates. This tribe is going to be tough to beat as you see that you're joined by Rob, Mark, Eddie, Angela, and Mare. Those on the other side aren't pushovers either, as you see Dennis, Joe, Steve, Lisa, Amanda, and Melissa holding red buffs. With a group of players of this caliber, you know that it'll take all of your skill, and probably some luck too, to win this game. Before you can even formally introduce yourself to your tribe, the first challenge is announced to begin right now. The challenge will consist of 4 swimmers racing to retrieve puzzle pieces while the other 2 put the puzzle together. Instantly, Angela announces that she'll do the puzzle because swimming. None of your other tribe mates seem to be as opinionated when it comes to their role in the challenge. With no one else jumping at the chance to do the puzzle, do you volunteer or do you swim instead? The next morning, you put your renewed drive to perform better into full effect. You make sure to talk with each tribe member one-on-one and have some great conversations. Feeling confident with your chats, it's almost as if you're starting over again on your social game. Having put your nerves behind you, you begin to show your full personality. The unpleasantness of yesterday gone for all, the sight of Mare coming into camp with tree mail gives everyone that feeling that only an upcoming Survivor challenge can. Mark gives a pep talk to the tribe, but instead of listening to his rah-rah, you think about the words Mare just read aloud and try to decipher what the next challenge could be. When you get to the challenge, everyone on red cranes their necks as Blue walks in. I wonder if they thought it might have been me, you laugh to yourself. Melissa seems particularly disappointed by the news. For the rest of the afternoon, you keep up the active moodiness around the others. Have to make them believe I think I'm done, you think. Despite already having triple-checked your bag, the first thing you do when you get to Tribal Council is open it. The fake idol still lies right on top. Tribal Council moves along smoothly. Okay, time to start the show, you think. After being asked the relatively innocent question of, What have you learned about yourself in this game? You say that the number one thing is that you have more fight in you than you knew possible. I actually don't think I'm going home, you add, while slipping your fake idol out of its hiding spot and around your neck. Though it looks decidedly amateurish up close, you reason that here at Tribal, no one will be able to get a good look at it in the semi-darkness. You play up your idol, and then drop the bomb. I'm not going home, you repeat. I think Amanda will in my place. Amanda starts to interrupt, but you hold up a hand to silence her. I'll be playing my idol, you continue, so you could either still vote for me, and my vote for Amanda will decide it, or you can join me and try to take a little bit of the credit by voting with the majority. At this point, everyone looks pretty spooked. Amanda begs the others to not believe this idol is real, but she has no idea. The fake idol stays around your neck while you vote, and even when the time comes to play an idol. Amanda is silently going crazy, making wild gesticulations to the rest of the tribe once your idol is exposed as fake. The first vote is for you. It's written in huge letters and underlined twice. Amanda put every ounce of emotion into that vote, you think. The next vote is your own for Amanda. Your heart sinks slightly as another vote for you is pulled from the urn. But then a glimmer of hope, as someone else has believed you and voted for Amanda. And now a ray of light as Amanda picks up a third vote. As Amanda receives the final vote, you're lost in a daydream about how this move will be received on TV and talked about for years to come. Amanda's explosion at the rest of the tribe only further confirms that this tribal council will never be forgotten. Seemingly having spent all of her energy at this point, Amanda drags herself and her torch to the front. As she walks out, you can't help but turn towards Joe and Angela on the jury and nod. And encouragingly, they nod back. I've lived with these people for weeks now, you think. I can tell when there's productive conversation to be had, and right now, the getting's not good. You grab your bag and find a private spot in the jungle. Since the beginning of the game, you've been collecting, or as some would say, stealing, various items around camp for a time like this. First, you take a piece of twine you pocketed once after untying a rolled up piece of tree mail. It's longer than what you need, so you use a nearby rock to cut it. Next, you thread a few beads and feathers onto it, followed by a seashell that you were able to work a hole through several days ago using the machete. For the finishing touches, you take some purple paint that was provided at the merge feast and apply it to the shell. Tying the ends of the twine together, you think it could be a passable grade school art project. Okay, fake idol, check. Now what to do with it? Do you choose to reveal your fake idol to the tribe now? Or would you prefer to wait until tribal council? You don't think that Amanda going home was a bad outcome at all. Quite the opposite. But you can't shake the feeling that it should have been Dennis instead. Just watching him at camp, you can tell that he has a renewed energy coming from a place of knowing that it should have been him and the wrong decision was made. The energy he's carrying turns out to be quite tangible as it propels Dennis to an easy immunity win as he pushes the last piece into place on his slide puzzle, while you stand exhausted 20 feet below him, having not even been able to put your ladder together to climb up to the slide puzzle. Back at camp, the lull continues as you talk to Rob and can't really even form a plan. The two of you can only be talking about taking out Melissa or Mare, but you can't put together a good recommendation to him for either. As you try to collect your thoughts for the 100th time, you notice Dennis and Melissa in the distance moving into the jungle. They stop only a short way in, right next to the big bush that disappointed you earlier in the game when you discovered no fruit grew from it. Seeing this causes you to say something way more interesting to Rob than anything that's come up in your attempted strategy talk. Let's go spy on them. With a straight shot to the bush and out of their sight, the two of you creep in and crouch behind it. It's the perfect spot. You can see but not be seen. You can hear and not be heard. And you hear plenty. Melissa clearly has not gotten enough of flipping. She's telling Dennis that she wants to go after Mare. You and Rob look at each other, eyebrows raised. Should we go get Mare? Rob mouths to you. Her hearing this would bind her even stronger to you, you know. But you also feel as rooted to the ground as the bush and want to hear more of where this conversation goes. Deciding quickly, you've figured out what to do. Do you think you should go get Mare? Or do you want to stay and listen to more of the conversation? Joe can do his own thing, you think, as you choose to go on a fishing expedition with Amanda. Having already been a star in the challenge, you think that coming home with a fish or two would raise your stock even further. Steve joins the two of you, and the couple hours out on the raft with them are nice as you get to know them more and have given yourself the option of working with them in the future. But the search for fish comes up empty. This isn't surprising to you though, as you didn't have high hopes for your homemade fishing poles. After just a little longer, the three of you call it quits and head back to camp, trying to get excited for your white rice dinner. After one last look at Rob, who's now staring straight ahead, you shift in your seat and also turn towards the reading of the votes. The first vote is for you and has a sad face on it. Mares, you think to yourself. The next vote is your own for mayor. Projecting confidence, you sit up straight for the moment of truth. Your shoulders drop as you see the vote is for you. You look at Rob and he gives you a my hands were tied kind of look. A glance at Angela doesn't yield any comfort either. Hoping for a miracle, the last vote comes out of the urn. And it's for you. Standing up, you toss your buff into the fire. Without a backward glance at your traitorous tribe, your torch is snuffed, and you take your leave from the game. If no one else is going to be bold and try to make a great first impression, then I will, you think. You stand next to Angela, who's representing Blue as their puzzle maker. You give her a mean look, which only draws an eye roll. The swimming portion is close, and the lead is traded back and forth. Watching everyone give their all in the challenge tells you that this is going to be an extremely competitive game, which is just the way you want it. Red ends up with a little bit of a lead as Amanda passes you the final key. You get to work on the lock, as you see Eddie hand Angela Blue's last key out of the corner of your eye. Do not screw this up, you repeat over and over in your head. Before you is the locked chest of puzzle pieces and the 5 keys that your tribe brought you. 4 of the keys are identical and won't open the lock, but the correct key looks different from the rest. Angela's already got her chest opened, and you have no time to waste. Which key will open your chest and allow you to begin on the puzzle? This challenge quickly proves that this is much more like Survivor than the vacation you've been on so far in the game. As you lug the sled plus Rob, who's sitting on top, you just pray that your back doesn't go out. You steal glances at Angela, Mark, and Mare, and see the exertion written on their faces. Why would we have ever sat Eddie out, you think, as he yawns and switches positions on the sit-out bench? Red surges ahead as you need to slow down to avoid dropping the sled. By the time you've made it to the finish line, Joe is already warmed up and has hit several targets. Rob springs into action and hits a target on his first try. But the early struggles are too much to overcome as Joe delivers the final blow to your chances to win the challenge. Red goes wild as all you can do is sit on the ground and catch your breath. Not only do you side with Rob, you offer to cook the meal. A bit overzealous, you think later, but forgivable with the excitement of the new game still pumping through you. Taking a mental note to stay cool and not let your excitement get the better of you like that again in the future, you walk over and grab the full bag of rice the tribe was given. In emptying rice out from the bag into the pot, something falls in there that definitely doesn't belong. Peering into the pot, you see a rolled up piece of paper sitting on top of all the rice. Already having to put your mental note to the test, you stow the paper away in your pocket and decide to read it after dinner. One expertly prepared pot of rice later, you find your chance to sneak away with your piece of paper. Hoping for the best, it turns out to be a clue to an idol hidden at the next challenge. Who's had a better start to this game than me, you think? I have a better idea, you shout to be heard over the downpour. Why don't you step off and I take you to the end? Amanda's only answer comes in the form of a quick burst of laughter, and her hand staying firmly planted. The challenge presses on, and with no end in sight, Melissa and Rob start campaigning to be allowed to go back to camp and get out of this weather. While you find the humor in this and look down smiling, this seems to have enraged Amanda. "Get out of here," she yells. "Let the true survivor fight the pain and the elements." Rob and Melissa, maybe too stunned at Amanda's outburst, maybe taking her words to heart, don't move. But that's still not good enough for Amanda. "Go," she yells. "Leave me to fight the fight of my life in peace." And as she motions with her head in the direction of camp, she wobbles. As she struggles to find equilibrium, you hold your breath and watch as she falls off of her stump and subsequently kicks it over. In a very bizarre fashion, you've won the final immunity challenge. As Amanda once again takes up the fight with Melissa and Rob, you want nothing more than to run all the way back to camp to escape both your tribe mates and the rain. But with your muscles howling in protest, you can only muster a slow-paced walk back amongst the rain and the screams. It's a short turnaround to Tribal Council, as the challenge ate up most of the afternoon. But that's okay with you. Once Amanda stepped off her perch, her fate was sealed. Tribal Council is explosive, as Amanda knows she's backed into a corner. In turn, you, Rob, and Melissa incur her wrath. What a way to bond us as a final three, you think grimly. Though the jury is loving the show, you wonder how much they'll enjoy it for themselves once Amanda becomes their problem. Moments later, as you, Rob, and Melissa smile after being told you've gone as far as you can in this game, you try to hold on to the last moments of a day you know you'll never forget. The idea of walking the beach with the two of them appeals more to you. Angela floats the idea of the three of you working closely together. Even though Mark is sneaky good at challenges and Angela's surprisingly athletic, the other tribe probably perceives Mare and Rob as the biggest challenge threats and would target them first. You like this three, but certainly aren't ready to forego any other opportunities that may find their way to you. Taking a break from the heat, the three of you cool off in the water and are soon joined by Mare and Rob. The five of you speculate on what's going on with the other tribe and what today's challenge might be. Despite the fact that you all only met each other less than a week ago, it seems as if you've known each other for years. After sharing quite a few laughs, you all exit the water feeling refreshed and ready for whatever the challenge will throw at you. Okay, this is a lot different than practice, you think, as you stand at the top of the 25-foot tower. You survey the course and take note of how you're going to get Dennis, Joe, and Melissa to their respective items while inflicting the least amount of damage on them. As the challenge begins, you have each of them on their way. Focusing on Joe, you're able to get him to the first item, but you realize with a jolt that only directing one person is a recipe for disaster. Dennis is on his way back with one of Blue's items, while Melissa is off course and wandering away from the challenge. Yelling like you didn't know you could, you set them straight and begin shouting quick directions to Joe, Melissa, and Dennis one at a time to keep everyone in line. Luckily, your mistake hasn't cost you much, as Mark is having just as much trouble keeping Mare, Angela, and Rob on task. Not knowing why you were so vocal about taking this role, you slowly work all three back to you with their items. I could have been in real trouble here, you think, but Blue might have made an even worse pick in having Mark call. Blue seems hapless at this point, and the retrievers are starting to yell just as much as Mark now. As Red starts working on raising the objects, you can see it's not overly complicated, as the toughest part of the challenge is now over. With the final item secured, you've once again won immunity. In your celebration, you notice Mark fighting with the rest of his tribe. Enjoy Tribal Council, guys, you think. When Steve and Dennis take a break from arguing about the shelter, you manage to pull Steve aside. "I think you and I want the same thing right now," you tell Steve. "Oh, you're looking to get a game of Catan going too?" asks Steve excitedly. "No, voting out Dennis, you say." Steve listens to your plan and seems convinced of what you're saying, that on a small tribe you have to go after threats much earlier than normal, and Dennis is as threatening as they get. Steve offers to fill in the rest of the tribe so that it doesn't seem suspicious that the two of you are spending so much time together. With some free time, you explore a little bit and are surprised to find a tree with limes growing on it. You decide you're not telling anyone about this as you eat a lime and pick another and put it in your bag. As you approach camp, you can see Steve talking with Amanda, Melissa, and Joe. Wow, my plan is going to work and I hardly have to do anything, you think. But as Joe shifts, you notice that Dennis is also a part of the discussion. This isn't right at all, you think. Hustling over to break the conversation up, everyone is told it's time for tribal. Wanting to believe that your plan is the real plan and not whatever both Steve and Dennis were talking about, you confidently answer all of the questions posed to you at tribal. But clearly you've either underestimated Steve as a strategist or misjudged your position in the game, because vote after vote is being read for you until a majority is quickly reached. As you pick up your bag and your torch, the lime falls out and rolls away. What a sour ending, you think. Caught up in being part of the final three, the next day goes by in a blur. One minute, you're enjoying breakfast that was delivered to camp. The next, you're spending time alone formulating your thoughts for tribal council. And then the next, you're saying goodbye to your camp for the last time. Final tribal council is rough. The jury is taking everything very seriously and is not pulling any punches. The time to reconnect and resume friendships with the final three will likely come after the game is over. Exhausted from the long debate, you think to yourself that Survivor should also add out-argue as part of its slogan. With nothing left to say, each of the jurors go up to cast their final vote. Think back on your journey to this point. Using these benchmarks to come up with one final number, use it to determine how your Survivor adventure comes to an end. What number do you come up with? Your hand went numb long ago, and you have to use your eyes to continue to confirm that you're actually still in the challenge. But as the challenge continues to drag on, any adrenaline rush you had had is long gone, and the rain is beginning to freeze you to the bone. Amanda looks unperturbed, and you think that either she's truly made of tougher stuff than you, or she's just got quite the poker face. Joints stiffening, you have no good options. Stand here and continue to deal with the cold and the numbness, or encounter the pain of just moving, not to mention losing the challenge. In the end, it was never a decision you had to make. Against your will, your hand slides down and off of the idol, and it's all over. Amanda's won immunity, and now it's safe for her to finally let all the discomfort she was experiencing show on her face. Given the length of the challenge, it leaves little time to strategize before tribal. Not to mention that the rain is forcing you to stay cooped up in the shelter. Amanda takes this time to make an announcement. She says that after some thought, she's decided to put her vote on you, and that Rob and Melissa could have a free ride into the final three by joining her. Feeling singled out, you demand details. Amanda says that she thinks you should take it as a compliment. You've played a very steady game, built good relationships, and made a power move at the final five. You do the math as talk around the shelter grows quiet, and you realize that in this spot, you have to convince one of Rob or Melissa to vote for the other to force a tie. Better yet, if you can convince them both to vote for the other, your vote can help overcome Amanda's plan. With the rain finally having let up, but with darkness coming, you only have time to talk to one of Rob or Melissa before it's time to go to tribal council. But who? The next morning, you're stunned to see Mark in camp tending to the fire. How can you possibly be here right now, you ask him. Not that I'm not thrilled to see you. I'm more resilient than you know, Mark says. Wondering if this means you'll have to go to tribal council now after all, Mark asks why you didn't help him out in his time of need. Trying to deflect and enjoy the good news of Mark's return, you call for the rest of the tribe to come see. But nothing happens. Don't bother, they won't come, Mark says. Spooked by his tone of voice, you ask what he means. Mark simply says that he took care of the rest of the tribe already, so that they won't have any responsibility for what's about to happen. Running away, and looking for someone in production to intervene, Mark suddenly appears before you with a giant canteen. He says with this, he'll never go thirsty again, but can't say the same for you. He unscrews the top to the canteen, but just before you can see what's inside, you bolt up in the shelter. A nightmare. It was only a nightmare, you tell yourself. Taking a few minutes to compose yourself, you soon head over to find the rest of the tribe. Everyone looks down. Surely they weren't having nightmares too, you can only hope. The mood at camp hasn't been so great since witnessing the horror of Mark being medevaced. Mare tries to pick up everyone's spirits in reminding you that winning the challenge today evens the numbers once again. When you get to the challenge, Red, who already knows what happened with Mark, gives your tribe sympathetic looks rather than the normal intimidating stares. Today's challenge is the infamous Sumo at Sea. One member from each tribe will face off against each other on a floating platform. The first to push the other off into the water scores a point for their tribe. The first tribe to 3 points wins immunity. Inspired by Rob's pep talk while strategizing, you offer to step up first. As the tribe cheers you on, you look across the platform at Dennis. He shouldn't be so tough, you think hopefully. When the round starts, you come out swinging, but Dennis takes your best shot and repays you with interest. You chance look at your tribemates who are shaking their heads and trying to avoid this embarrassing spectacle. And down into the water you go, giving Red the early lead. Angela is able to tie up the challenge in winning over Melissa, while Mare loses the next round to Joe. She completely ignores your high five as she climbs back up to join the tribe, and you note to steer clear of her as she seems furious. Rob's able to force Steve off, bringing up the final round. And for the deciding point, it's back to the top of the order as you head up to face Amanda. She steps onto the platform very confidently after having watched you lose the first round in a non-competitive effort. The read you get on the rest of your tribe is that they think you're about to lose the challenge for them. I'll show them, you think, as the round begins. You have a feeling that Amanda's stronger than you, so in order to win this round, you'll have to outwit her and use that strength against her. Amanda has had a storied Survivor Branford career. Sort each of these items into 2 groups, things that Amanda has done in the game and things that she hasn't. Depending on what side has more, it'll guide you on how to dodge her incoming blow. At Tribal Council, you overly dramatize your immunity win, but don't understate how important that necklace is for you right now. It may very well have been me, you say to the group, as Dennis slowly nods. Though he and Amanda know it's going to be one of them, neither make a big fuss at Tribal Council for wanting to appear strong. Okay, you think, walking to the voting booth, this may be the most comfortable I've felt in a while. The first 2 votes to be read are split between Dennis and Amanda. Their own votes, you conclude. The drama doesn't come in the next 3 votes being shown for Amanda. It comes in Amanda's exit. Standing up and pointing at each person one by one and telling them why they won't win the game, she grabs all of her things in a huff. One of us has to win. You know that, right? Says Rob. Not if I can help it, says Amanda, maybe a little louder than called for. He shrugs, and she mockingly shrugs back before it's her time to go. None of you are getting my vote, shouts Amanda as she gets the last word in while heading down the path and out of Tribal Council. Detecting that maybe Rob is regretting teaching you how to make fire earlier in the game, the challenge begins. You think you know what you're doing, but decide to mirror Rob's moves. He grabs a handful of coconut husk and lays it down, which you quickly copy. He then uses his machete to scrape magnesium from his flint. You begin accumulating shavings as well. Then the air is filled with the sound of steel striking steel as both you and Rob seek a spark. Rob jumps out to the lead with a small fire and begins to add kindling to grow it. Sweat lining your forehead, you continue to strike the flint. And then you have it. A baby fire is born. Rushing to grow it, you pile the kindling on top of the little flame. It begins to grow, and soon rivals Rob's fire. And with a stroke of luck, Rob's fire snaps his teepee-like structure, causing his flame to lose a significant amount of its size. Battling a slight breeze and Rob, who's attempting to get back in the challenge, you're able to push your flame higher still so that it laps at your rope. As flames begin to sprout atop your rope, A wide smile crosses your face as your flag pops up and you win the challenge. After a handshake from Rob, and hearing him say something about the pupil having become the teacher, he gathers up his belongings and heads out. On the way back to camp, your biggest hope now is that the energy you spent in the challenge is enough to outweigh your buzzing mind in a quest for sleep. With a small season and a jury only numbering 5, it's only going to take 3 votes to win. The first vote's revealed for Amanda, and the second for Melissa. Your mind is already getting carried away, thinking that you're going to be shut out. But you break through with a vote which evens things up. And a second vote is shown for you. You can hardly believe it. You thought your final tribal performance was poor, but everyone is their own worst critic. And then as the last vote comes out, all you remember hearing is, and the winner of, before you're on your feet celebrating the conclusion of this magic carpet ride you've been on. After congratulating Amanda and Melissa, and thanking the jury, you're thrilled to be taking your place among the other winners of Survivor Branford. Congratulations on a well-played game. You are the sole survivor. Throwing caution to the winds, you decide it's time to make your move. In one fluid motion, you bend down, reach under the sled, snatch the idol, and slip it in your pocket. Impressed with yourself, you're sure no one's noticed anything, as everyone is cheering Rob on. With the worst of it over, you cheer for Rob louder than you normally might. The thrill of finding an idol is only heightened by seeing Rob come through and your tribe winning its first challenge. When's the last time you felt a high like this? The rest of the afternoon, you find reasons not to be anywhere near Mare. You've really enjoyed her company and playing the game with her, but it's dawned on you that she's a significant hurdle in between you and winning the game. You're afraid that if you talk to her, your guilt over what you're about to do will show all over. Talking with Rob is only a little less hard, as you're still planning to betray him, but at least he'll still be around tomorrow. At Tribal Council, it pains you to keep up the act and say words that reflect the status quo. With one last chance to change your mind, your hand hovers over your vote after you've written an M and an E. The final chance for an idol to be played comes and goes without any action. Mare seems slightly surprised, but unbothered that she gets 2 out of the first 4 votes. But the last vote elicits emotions of shock and anger from her. Noting Rob's equally shocked face, she rules him out as the flipper and focuses a penetrating stare in your direction. Trying to block her out by staring at the floor, she declares your chances of winning this game over. Only when the coast is clear do you pick your head up. Definitely a big move, you think, as you grab your torch and head out of Tribal Council with the rest. But will it ultimately help or hurt my chances of winning this game? Oh no, that was a horrible decision, you think in a panic. I'm looking like a fool in front of everyone. You quickly get your mind right and try again. But with your hiccup, Blue has now taken a decent lead. And it's only several minutes later that Angela places the last piece for Blue as you watch them celebrate while you look at your tribe's half-completed puzzle. As the immunity idol is handed to Blue, the gravity of your situation sinks in. While heading to your camp for the first time, you're already panicking. There's nothing to go on other than challenge performance, and you were the worst at the first one. You need to find a reason to get someone else voted out. You think that you need more info, and decide to sit back for a little while and observe before you try to make any moves. And your idea works perfectly, as Steve and Dennis start bickering over how to make the shelter. You see a rift in the tribe that you can exploit. Perhaps the rest of the tribe will want to keep harmony by voting one of them out. It might be smart to keep the more experienced player, you think. Should you try to put the target on Steve or Dennis? Pulling your buff over your face, the world goes black. You line up next to Dennis and Joe, while Melissa takes her position at the top of the tower. Amanda gives encouragement from the sit-out bench while massaging her nose, which took the brunt of the contact with the tree earlier. As the challenge gets underway, Melissa proves to be just as adept at calling as she was back at camp. Easily able to focus in on her voice and block out Mark's screams directed at Blue, you make your way to the item you're to retrieve. As you head back towards the sound of Melissa's voice, you collide with Mare and fall to the ground. Picking yourself up, you make it back to the start. You're the first of the 6 retrievers back, which surprises even you. Melissa's able to guide both Dennis and Joe back, while Mark and Rob fight over the definition of left versus right. Lifting the items goes quickly, and already half are atop the tower by the time Blue is finally able to get to work. With the big lead calming all of your nerves, the rest of the challenge goes smoothly, and it's not long until Red tastes immunity once again. Today went perfectly, you think? Except maybe I shouldn't have held out hope that a surprise reward would come with immunity. But winning a few chickens too sure would have been nice. After Rob retakes his seat, the jury's decision is officially in. Each vote is worth even more than normal with the small 5-person jury. The first vote is for Dennis, then a vote for Mare, and then Mare receives a second vote. Now knowing your best shot is forcing a tie, you lean forward only to see another vote for Dennis, which officially eliminates you from contention. Barely caring who wins now, you close your eyes. You think to yourself that it would be great if the last vote was for you, which forces a tie, but it's not. And with a final reveal, Dennis is crowned the winner of Survivor Branford. He found a way to overcome the long odds he was faced with, and after many years of trying, has finally won the game. As Dennis takes his victory lap, you force a smile onto your face and perform your best golf clap. Everyone's instructed to hold out their fist and open on the count of 3. Amanda is looking up, mouthing something silently, while Dennis's arm shakes slightly, and Angela wears a sullen mask on her face. The first thing you notice when the reveal comes is that you're safe. Incredibly relieved, you look to the left, hoping one of Dennis, or especially that traitor Amanda, are going home. But neither has the expression of someone whose game has just ended, nor the rock to prove it. And knowing that could only mean one thing, you hear a slam behind you as Angela gathers up her possessions and gets ready to go. Preparing for the impact of the rock when Angela throws it at you, luckily that moment never comes. But it's still a bitter loss to take. I've lost my idol, I've lost an ally, and I've lost the trust that my remaining allies had in me. There's no way I'll be getting any sleep tonight. You're awoken the next morning by Mare. Team meeting in 5 minutes, she says. You aren't sure you heard her right. Team meeting? What is this, you think? Corporate world doesn't work out here in the bush, you recall from the very first season of Survivor. As you head over to the rest of the group, Eddie, Mare, Rob, and Angela are sitting in the sand while Mark stands before them. Mark invites you to take a seat as he begins his lecture on how today's challenge is important and everyone needs to stay loyal to each other beyond the merge. Fighting the urge to laugh, or even make eye contact with your tribe mates, you make it through the meeting. A short time later, after class is dismissed, Eddie comes back into camp with tree mail. Since it sounds like this challenge is going to require a lot of strength, the tribe agrees to have a big breakfast before heading out to meet up with Red. Arriving to the challenge, you see that Lisa was voted out. Smart, you think. This tribe isn't going to make the same mistake that Phoenix did. Standing up, you walk all the way over to Melissa and whisper something into her ear. It's really nothing of meaning, but this is all for show, trying to fake out Amanda and Dennis that you've actually found the crack in their alliance, and pandemonium reigns. Soon, 3 different whispered conversations are happening all at once. You don't know if anything is changing, but this is called not going down without a fight. Order has been restored a few minutes later, and most seem to be a little less sure of themselves now. Mission accomplished. Once all the votes are in, it's time to see what they say. As the reading moves along, it reaches a 3-3 tie between you and Joe. Come on, you think. One of you fools flip. But this time at least it's not to be. As you stand up, you wonder if you were even going to be the target before your theatrics. But you do know you'd rather go out like this in a flash than have to deal with the likely drawn-out demise that Rob and Mare are staring down. To cement the plan, and maybe even take the credit away from Amanda, you stand up. Everyone looks at you as you make a show of strolling over to present the idol. I'm playing it for Mare, you announce, to 6 unreadable faces and 1 delighted Mare. And now as planned, here come the votes for Joe, one after another until 4 are read. And just as you ready yourself for more theatrics once you see Mare's name, you quickly deflate as you see a vote for Rob has been cast. Now 2. Now 3. Come on, Amanda, you pray. But it's no good as the votes are tied between Joe and Rob. How awful, you think. Not only did Amanda not flip, I've lost credibility with my allies since I promised we had her, and I've lost my idol too. After impassioned arguments from Joe and Rob, a revote comes and goes, but doesn't change a thing. For the first time in Survivor Branford history, the vote will be settled by a rock draw. And a bunch of you won't be drawing. Mare with the idol, Melissa with the immunity necklace, and Rob and Joe having been the ones receiving votes. Dennis draws first, followed by Amanda, and the bag comes to you next. You feel 2 rocks in there, one sitting on the left side, and the other to the right. Not even knowing if the death rock is still in the bag, you instinctively make your choice. Do you choose the rock sitting on the left-hand side of the bag, or the one on the right? Trying to keep from letting the feeling that your game is on the line become overwhelming, you steady your shaking hands and begin to guide the ball through the course. As you eye the maze, you notice that it's not exceptionally difficult. Rather, the challenge lies in guiding a ball with a mind of its own through the twists and turns. Realizing that taking your eyes off of your maze to see how everyone else is doing would be foolish, you dig in and slowly but surely make progress. A few minutes later, you're just a few moves away from the win, but you hear it announced that Dennis is right on the verge of victory. Blocking that out, you focus on your task when the next announcement comes. Dennis has lost his ball into one of the decoy holes and will need to start over. Heart pounding now, you know this is your challenge to lose. With just one more turn to make, you hear a joyful shout go up. Rob has won the challenge. You almost can't help but laugh, as your war with Dennis made you completely forget that there were 4 other people all trying to win this challenge as well. Back at camp, Rob basks in the glory of his immunity win, and either through the power of the necklace or through the power of Rob, he and Melissa go off for quite a while. Politeness out the window, you and Mare go to search them out. When you find them, they don't hastily end their conversation or move away. They motion you over. Melissa outlines her plan that she wants to work with the 3 of you against Dennis and Amanda. She's come to the conclusion that she's not in either of their long-term plans, so it's time to take action first. Excitement running through you as you feel in a position of power now, you once again say that you want Dennis out. No one disagrees. Mare brings up the point that the numbers could work out for you to do a vote split. At first you think it sounds easy. Even an idol won't ruin your plan. But what could wreck things is Melissa. If she's not actually with you, a vote split would allow Dennis and Amanda to control the vote if Melissa went running back to them. As if Melissa could read your mind, she looks at you and swears that she's with the 3 of you on this plan. Everyone has told plenty of lies in this game. From day 1 until right before this conversation, Melissa had told exactly 16 lies. After the conversation, is she still at 16, or has that number gone up? Each coconut represents a lie Melissa has told in the game. Has she still only told 16 lies, meaning she's serious about the plan to split the vote? Or has her lie counter increased, meaning it would be wiser to pile all of your votes onto Dennis? For the second time in a few minutes, Angela's told it's nothing personal, since you've decided it's her vote you're choosing to steal. She seems outraged, but you know this is for the best in holding your alliance together. You'll stay up all night working on that fire if you have to, just so that everyone can eat and hopefully settle down. After voting for Dennis, and using Angela's vote to do the same, you congratulate yourself on your quick thinking in not letting the game go somewhere you didn't want it to. After 6 votes are read, it's tied at 3 votes for Dennis and 3 votes for Angela. You actually yawn at this point and think of the extra room there'll be in the shelter without Dennis around. But as the last vote is pulled out, by the light of the fire you can see through the back, and what's written certainly doesn't start with a D. It begins and ends with an A, and it's not Amanda's name. Stunned, you turn to look at Angela, who has to have had one of the all-time worst single days on Survivor. Mare flipped, you know, and it's everyone for themselves now. Perhaps somehow at peace with the vote out, or maybe too incensed to show it, Angela grabs her torch. You can only hope that the big pot of steamer she's sure to enjoy soon is a cure for all that ails. Detecting that maybe Rob is regretting teaching you how to make fire earlier in the game, the challenge begins. You think you know what you're doing, but decide to mirror Rob's moves. He grabs a handful of coconut husk and lays it down, which you quickly copy. He then uses his machete to scrape magnesium from his flint. You begin accumulating shavings as well. Then the air is filled with the sound of steel striking steel as both you and Rob seek a spark. Rob jumps out to the lead with a small fire and begins to add kindling to grow it. Sweat lining your forehead, you continue to strike the flint. And then you have it. A baby fire is born. Rushing to grow it, you pile the kindling on top of the little flame. It begins to grow, and soon rivals Rob's fire. And with a stroke of luck, Rob's fire snaps his teepee-like structure, causing his flame to lose a significant amount of its size. Battling a slight breeze and Rob, who's attempting to get back in the challenge, you're able to push your flame higher still so that it laps at your rope. As flames begin to sprout atop your rope, a wide smile crosses your face as your flag pops up and you win the challenge. After a handshake from Rob, and hearing him say something about the pupil having become the teacher, he gathers up his belongings and heads out. On the way back to camp, your biggest hope now is that the energy you spent in the challenge is enough to outweigh your buzzing mind in a quest for sleep. Doing the quick math, you know it's going to be a race to 3 votes with the smaller than normal jury. Amanda's already a third of the way there as she grabs the first vote. The second is for Melissa. Expecting the third vote for you, it's disappointing to see that it's a second vote for Amanda. As Melissa gets a second vote, you hang your head, knowing that it's all over for your chances to win the game. You're already starting to debate internally if being a 0-vote finalist is worse than not having made it to the final 3 at all. But the fate of the 2 non-zero vote finalists still hangs in the balance. Amanda and Melissa tense for the reading of the last vote. And it's for Melissa. In a first, all of the final 3 sits in a stunned silence once the final vote is read. After a few seconds, Joe breaks the silence as he stands up and applauds Melissa, and he's soon joined by the rest of the jury. This helps Amanda and Melissa out of their trance as they stand up. Not even fully conscious of you standing up yourself or the pat on the shoulder you give to Melissa, all you can think about is what it was that turned your promising campaign into a distant third-place finish. Without water, Mark is fading fast and risking serious dehydration. Mercifully, the challenge comes to an end as Steve tags you. But this is the least of your problems. Medical's already rushing in to treat Mark, who's only murmuring about keeping Blue strong at this point. They confirm that with proper care, Mark will be fine. However, that proper care can only occur at the nearest hospital. With teary goodbyes all around, Mark is put into a helicopter and taken away. You do receive the news that Tribal Council will be cancelled due to Mark's medevac, but it does little to lift your spirits. As you all line up, the covers begin coming off of the plates. Pig snouts, scorpions, and worst of all, balut. The range of emotions on the tribe varies from Joe, who looks unbothered as if he ordered the food himself, to Amanda, who has her hands over her face and is sneaking peeks through her fingers. Struck by inspiration, you rummage through your bag and find the lime. Quickly peeling it and handing pieces to everyone, you know that the taste of the lime will insulate the tribe from the nastiness that's about to come. With the challenge playing to 3, Joe steps up first and easily gets his scorpion down before Eddie. This doesn't tell you whether or not the lime made a difference, so you step up next. The pig snout proves no problem as the acidity of the lime is still very strong on your tongue. Mare had no chance. And in a sight that seemed incomprehensible just a couple minutes ago, Amanda draws on the power of the lime to get her balut down and win the challenge. Can we change our tribe color to green, you think? Because the lime is now our official mascot. No one moves. Okay, 5-3 for Joe it is, you think. You find it a bit surprising that the former Red has been throwing their votes on you. No matter, you think. Tomorrow I'll just have to start on Operation Downplay My Threat Level. At 3-3, you ready for yet another Joe vote to be read. So relaxed, you aren't even looking straight ahead as it comes. But a 4th vote for you jolts you back to your senses. Cursing Dennis, you're resigned to the tie. But for the second time in 10 seconds, you're jolted into reality as somehow, someway, it was you all along. Looking around in a haze, you find the guilty face. Mare. She gives you an apologetic look, as her new allies seem ready to embrace her. You prepare to stand up, hoping that your legs can support you. Saying words that will surely be censored out of the TV product, you only see red when giving one last glare to the former Red tribe. They'll get what's coming to them, you hope, as you get what comes to you. A snuffed torch. When you get back to camp, it's already scramble mode. You take a minute to put your things down and get organized, and when you turn around, no one's there. My goodness, what a rookie mistake, you mutter to yourself. Okay, stay calm, you haven't been voted out yet. Scanning the area, you see Angela, Mare, Rob, and Mark having a discussion down by the water. Behind you, you hear rustling as Eddie searches alone for the immunity idol. Do you decide to join the group, or is it a better choice to go see what Eddie's up to? The mood of the tribe remains high back at camp. Not only did you win yet another immunity challenge, but it's presumed the merge is happening after the next vote, which means that Red is guaranteed to have the numbers. With a lazy afternoon on the horizon, people take the opportunity to do their own things. Dennis settles in for a nap, while Melissa and Joe take the raft out to fish. Unlike the others announcing their plans to everyone, Amanda says nothing and sneakily walks away. Wanting to know what she's up to, you're very tempted to follow, knowing that nothing nearly as exciting will be happening back at camp. If I don't go, I could at least clean camp up and earn some brownie points, you think. Do you follow Amanda, or stay at camp? Knowing that if there's anyone who would flip on their tribe at the merge for the sake of strategy, it would be Dennis. You can only hope that he hasn't developed too much of an emotional attachment to the rest of his former tribe. Dennis takes care to always be with a group of people, and right now is no different. You find Dennis down by the water with Joe and Melissa, washing out some of the used pots. In this pressure-filled time of trying to secure the numbers, you lack the subtlety to peel Dennis away, and just come right out and ask him if the two of you can talk. Joe and Melissa give him a look, and after a minute he says that he'll come find you when he's done with these pots. You head off, and about 10 minutes later Dennis joins you. You're careful to spell it out to him. It's going to be a tie unless he flips. And someone like Dennis isn't going to want the game to come down to luck in drawing rocks. Dennis thoughtfully considers your argument and thinks there's something there. He wants to think about it some more, and maybe talk with some of the other members of the former Blue tribe in helping to form an opinion. Later on, you can't help but think that the plan is coming together perfectly, as Dennis does end up having solo conversations with Rob, Angela, and Mare. His conversation with Mare is especially long, you notice. In getting back with Mare later, she says that the conversation was the culmination of all the conversations he was having with the former Blue, and that it's done 100%. Feeling as good as you can, you head off to pack up your things for Tribal Council. Tribal goes well, and you can't wait to see Joe, Melissa, and Amanda's faces after the blindside happens. After everyone casts their vote, it comes time for anyone who has one to play an idol. If you have an idol, do you choose to play it, or do you hang on to it, or not have one to begin with? With Mare, Melissa, Joe, and Rob serving as a rapt audience, the rock drawers are told to reveal the contents of their hands on the count of 3. 1. You chance to look at a determined Angela. 2. You peer over at Amanda, who has her eyes closed. 3. You notice the tension drain out of Dennis as he opens his hand to find safety. Before you could even look at what you're holding, you feel a comforting hand on your shoulder as the end of your game sits in your palm. At least I've made history with this one, you think, as you prepare to make your leave. Maybe this rock will be a valuable collector's item one day. You decide it's now or never. It should have been never. You're seen by Mare. Unable to forget the look you received, you panic and aren't even able to grab the idol. You barely pay attention to the challenge, instead trying to think of a way out from your predicament as your mind races a million miles an hour. And as if karma was paying attention, Joe's able to hit his last target before Rob, giving Red immunity. Back at camp, you rush over to Mare to explain yourself. You don't even have a good lie ready. Your claim that you are going to share the idol with everyone seems paper thin, even to you. The cherry on top of the fail cake comes when you ask Mare to keep this between the two of you, and she replies with an unconvincing, okay. When you see Mare go off to talk to the rest of the tribe, you hustle over there to join. Rob tries to be polite and tells you that they need a minute without you. As you try to argue your case, Mare just points to camp and yells, go! All afternoon you try and fail to get anything going with anyone else. Dying a slow death in Survivor is not the way to go out, you think a few hours later, as you stare at the smoke rising from your snuffed torch. As it seems with any first challenge in Survivor, it stays neck and neck. You can feel everyone willing their respective puzzle makers to get the job done and bring immunity home. Just as Angela is about to place the final piece of the puzzle, you hear a cry go up from Red. Please make them have something out of place, you think, but no such luck. Red has won the challenge. You know that you could have done better, and privately blame yourself for the challenge loss. But were my struggles obvious, or is it just me being hard on myself? Doing the quick math, you know it's going to be a race to 3 votes with the smaller than normal jury. Dennis is already a third of the way there as he grabs the first vote. The second is for Mare. Expecting the third vote to be for you, it's disappointing to see that it's a second vote for Dennis. As Mare gets a second vote, you hang your head, knowing that it's all over for your chances to win the game. You're already starting to debate internally if being a 0-vote finalist is worse than not having made it to the final 3 at all, but the fate of the 2 non-0-vote finalists still hangs in the balance. Dennis and Mare tense for the reading of the last vote. And it's for Mare. You're pulled into a hug from her that you weren't ready to give as she begins to celebrate wildly. While she starts to give an impromptu thank you speech, you sit back down and ponder where things went wrong. Convincing yourself that it's mind over matter, you grab a pole and throw it over your shoulders, taking your spot on a raised platform. Blue opts to put their first 20 pounds on you. The bar gets a little heavier, but it's nothing you can't handle. Several minutes later, Blue has once again decided to saddle you with 20 more pounds as your bar begins to sag a bit. You look over jealously at Amanda and Joe, who are still only holding the bar with no weight. Blue decides to spread out their distribution now. Joe gets 20 pounds, then a few minutes later, Amanda gets 20 pounds. After holding that 40 pounds on your shoulders for over 10 minutes, it's starting to feel like 400. As if you said that out loud, Blue decides it's time for you to take more weight and go up to 60 pounds. The bar begins to dig into you. The struggle must really be showing on your face, because Angela is encouraging Blue's weight bearers by saying that you're about to drop. Digging in, you push through, for 2 whole minutes. This can't be 60 pounds you're holding. The weights must have been measured wrong. Realizing you're making excuses, you try to recenter, but just as you shift the bar, it slides off of you and drops to the ground, eliminating you from the challenge. You take a seat and watch the rest play out. Despite the fact that everyone else lasted much longer in the challenge, it doesn't bother you. And when Blue goes on to win, largely due to your early exit, you aren't super concerned. As bad as you did here, you were the star in the last challenge and still have line power going for you. What's Steve done, you think, as you return to camp, besides imitating poultry at the crack of dawn? Considering him to be the most expendable, you get to work. After talking privately with Joe, and then with Amanda, you think they're both on your side. As you look for Melissa, Steve approaches you. He said he's heard that you're after him, and that means he's after you. Not being a very good liar, you don't deny it. But that's irrelevant. There's no way that they'll pick Steve over me, you think. As you finish up all your one-on-one conversations, you notice Steve pulling aside everyone individually as well. At Tribal Council, you vote for Steve, and watching his pen strokes from afar, you can tell that he's just written down your name. It's up to the other 4, those rational, smart, kind people who will always have your back. Scratch that. Those crazy, stupid, backstabbing losers who just voted you out. With no desire to look at any of their dumb faces, you take your exit from the game and start to pray someone from Blue goes all the way. After a short walk back to camp, you find Amanda alone tending to the fire. This is a sign I've made the right choice, you think, as everyone has left, to allow you and Amanda a private conversation as if respecting destiny. You lay all the cards out to Amanda as she silently listens and nods. She admits that she doesn't think she'd make it to the final 3 by sticking with Red, and says that not only could this help shake things up, but that this would be her move. When Amanda asks you if she'd just be at the bottom of this new alliance, you say of course not, though in your heart you know it's a lie. 20 minutes later, you excitedly meet back up with Mayor Angela and Rob and tell them that Amanda is in to vote Joe out. Even though there could be much more strategic discussion to be had, the 4 of you decide to each go your own way to reduce the chances that anyone else realizes a big move is about to go down. In the lead up to Tribal, you have meaningless conversations with Joe, Melissa, and Dennis, mostly just to keep them from talking to each other. Although not blessed with the power to be everywhere at once, later on you do happen to see from a distance Amanda talking very animatedly with her former tribe. She's only doing what I'm doing, you think, throwing them off the scent. At Tribal Council, everyone does their best to answer questions without saying anything. Stealing one last look at Amanda before going to vote, you notice that she looks confident in whatever she's doing. Snapping out of your thoughts just in time, you hear the announcement that if anyone has a hidden immunity idol and would like to play it, now would be the time. At this stage of the game, do you have an idol or not? When Steve and Dennis take a break from arguing about Steve's allergies, you manage to pull Steve aside. I think you and I want the same thing right now, you tell Steve. Oh, you wish you could watch the USC game right now too, asks Steve with enthusiasm. No, voting out Dennis, you say. Steve listens to your plan and seems convinced of what you're saying, that on a small tribe you have to go after threats much earlier than normal, and Dennis is as threatening as they get. Steve offers to fill in the rest of the tribe so that it doesn't seem suspicious that the 2 of you are spending so much time together. With some free time you explore a bit and are surprised to find a freshwater pond with a waterfall flowing into it. After relaxing a bit in the water, you decide to head back. As you approach camp, you can see Steve talking with Amanda, Melissa, and Joe. Wow, my plan is going to work, and I hardly have to do anything, you think. But as Joe shifts, you notice that Dennis is also a part of the discussion. This isn't right at all, you think. Hustling over to break the conversation up, everyone is told it's time for tribal. Wanting to believe that your plan is the real plan, and not whatever both Steve and Dennis were talking about, you confidently answer all of the questions posed to you at tribal. But right before the vote, Steve says a couple of Steve-like things, which draws hearty laughter from Dennis. I cannot believe I was stupid enough to leave them alone and let them patch up their differences, you think, as the votes start coming down for you. As you pick up your bag and your torch, Steve sneezes, and you think maybe it was you that he was allergic to. The next day, Dennis walks into camp with tree mail. Usually, tree mail gives a vague rhyme about what the next challenge is to be, but today it's clear as day. The challenge will work where 3 tribe mates are blindfolded while one stands up in a tower as the caller. The caller must guide the blindfolded players to various objects, which they must bring back to the foot of the tower. Once all of the objects have been returned, the tribe must raise them to the top of the tower. Like any smart group of players would, Red practices around camp in the hours leading up to the challenge. Everyone takes a turn at being the caller in order to determine who will be best for the job. In practice, it seems clear that Melissa was the best caller. However, you've been thinking about your performance in which you had Amanda walk into a tree, and Joe trip over the fire pit. The fire was out, thankfully. And think you could do a few things different and be an even better caller than Melissa proved to be. As you, Amanda, Melissa, Dennis, and Joe stand on one mat, with Angela, Mayor, Rob, and Mark on the other, you're still on the fence about whether or not you want to push the tribe off the plan to have Melissa be the caller. Which role do you decide to do? Caught up in being part of the final 3, the next day goes by in a blur. One minute, you're enjoying breakfast that was delivered to camp. The next, you're spending time alone formulating your thoughts for tribal council. And then the next, you're saying goodbye to your camp for the last time. Final tribal council is rough. The jury is taking everything very seriously and is not pulling any punches. The time to reconnect and resume friendships with the final 3 will likely come after the game is over. Exhausted from the long debate, you think to yourself that Survivor should also add out-argue as part of its slogan. With nothing left to say, each of the jurors go up to cast their final vote. Think back on your journey to this point. Using these benchmarks to come up with one final number, use it to determine how your Survivor adventure comes to an end. What number do you come up with? This is definitely the right tree, you think. It's identical to this picture. You look up and down the tree from the leaves to the roots and don't find a thing. Maybe Amanda did find whatever was here after all. Maybe someone else already had it. More confused now than you were before, and not wanting to feel this way on a day without tribal, you head back to camp. Taking in the sight of your dirty hands, you think that a detour down to the water to wash up would be a better course of action. With Lisa and Eddie gone, the tribes are even. The next challenge is Hot Pursuit, which should be brutal in these conditions. Both tribes will start at the end of an ovular course, with each member holding a heavy sandbag. On go, the tribes will run the course, each trying to catch the other from behind. The challenge is as tough as advertised. Angela quickly drops out, maybe smartly you think to yourself, as Mark takes her bag. After a few more laps, Mayor exits, and Rob now carries double the weight. With just 3 left, Rob still seems strong, but you notice that Mark is getting gassed. You offer to take his weight so he can quit, but he refuses, screaming support for the tribe. Despite Mark's courageousness, the gap between you and Red is starting to dwindle, and Mark may need help. Do you give your full canteen to Mark? Keep it for yourself, or do you not have one? Wow, congratulations. I know it couldn't have been easy getting to this point, overcoming all the trials and the tribulations the game throws at you. Hope you didn't cheat. But this isn't the end of your journey, it's actually just the beginning. Go back now, try another path, and see what decisions, puzzles, and hopefully laughs await you. One thing I do know is that all roads lead to Survivor Branford, Season 7. See you then. With the honeymoon feeling of the merge passed by the next morning, you know the game is back on in full force. After a breakfast, with a dash of strategy and a side of whispering, the new Purple Tribe heads to their first individual immunity challenge. For this challenge, everyone has to hold a circular donut-looking piece and put a ball on the track inside the circle. Holding the donut out in front of you, each player will then have to get their ball going so that it spins around and around on the inside of the donut. The last to drop their ball wins immunity. As the challenge begins, you quickly realize that this is not for you, as your arms get stiff and the sounds of the balls going around and around has a bit of a hypnotic effect on you. 10 minutes later, and 8 minutes after having lost the challenge yourself, Amanda's ball drops, and Melissa has won the first individual immunity challenge of the season. After returning to camp and going through the requisite congratulating of Melissa, everyone gets down to business. You would hope that this part could wait for just a little longer, but with these players out here, that was a foolish assumption. You take a minute to revisit your pre-game thoughts that if you made the merge, you were not going to be held back by original tribes. I'm a free agent, you think, and I'll do whatever is best for my game. Wanting to get in everyone's good graces, you start to join in on some of the conversations. Your first opportunity comes as Rob, Mare, and Angela have grouped together and are talking about who from the original Red they think should be the first to go. How about Amanda, suggests Mare. I don't think so, says Angela. Amanda's always the target at the merge, and if she has something, it's being played now. Best to pick someone else. Rob says that Joe appeared to be one of the leaders of Red from what he observed at challenges. You decide to speak up now and agree with Rob's idea. We just need one more, though. Is there anyone on Red we think could flip? Everyone thinks in silence, and then turns to you. Which remaining member of the former Red Tribe do you think is most likely to flip? With the adrenaline flowing as the challenge gets underway, you and Angela cheer wildly for your tribe as they complete the swimming leg of the challenge. Your cheering only goes so far, as Red has returned with their puzzle pieces first, allowing Lisa and Steve to begin working on their puzzle. But Blue isn't far behind, as Angela gives you a reassuring look that you're still very much alive in this challenge. And you turn back to see the rest of your tribe hurrying up the beach, dragging the puzzle pieces behind them. As they deliver the pieces to you and Angela, it's your time to shine. Taking the sequence below, shift each letter back the number of letters in the alphabet corresponding to the position it's in. This will guide you and Angela as you do the puzzle. Caught up in being part of the final three, the next day goes by in a blur. One minute, you're enjoying breakfast that was delivered to camp. The next, you're spending time alone formulating your thoughts for tribal council. And then the next, you're saying goodbye to your camp for the last time. Final tribal council is rough. The jury is taking everything very seriously and is not pulling any punches. The time to reconnect and resume friendships with the final three will likely come after the game is over. Exhausted from the long debate, you think to yourself that Survivor should also add out-argue as part of its slogan. With nothing left to say, each of the jurors go up to cast their final vote. Think back on your journey to this point. Using these benchmarks to come up with one final number, use it to determine how your Survivor adventure comes to an end. What number do you come up with? You wake up the next day to the sound of a rooster. You bolt up and yell out to the rest of the tribe that a free dinner is wandering somewhere around camp. Melissa and Amanda tell you to grab the machete and run towards the jungle. As you're running, you hear it again. Joe and Dennis say they've seen the bird, and the three of you should fan out to capture it. Just as you start thinking about boiled chicken, Dennis and Joe burst out laughing. Amanda and Melissa come in laughing as well, and through the clearing comes a smiling Steve. "Did you like my gamecock call?" he asks. "I've been practicing it for years." Your disappointment and then anger soon dissolves, and then you laugh along with everyone else. If being pranked for sleeping in is my worst problem in this game, life is pretty good, you admit. Later that day, as you arrive to the challenge, you see it's the classic weight-bearing challenge, shoulder the load. 3 people will have to hold as much weight as they can on a pole across their back, while one other from the opposing tribe will strategically assign weights to be borne at regular intervals. Blue doesn't even get to sit someone out with only 4 players left, as Eddie was voted out previously. This challenge might already be in the bag, you allow yourself to think. Despite your confidence, you still need to decide what your involvement in the challenge will be. Look at the images on the screen. The first letter of each will spell out advice about which role you should take in the challenge. So what's it going to be? Weight bearer or distributor? After sleeping surprisingly well for being on Survivor, Melissa comes in with tree mail. Your stomach turns over once you hear her read the words on the parchment. As you walk into the challenge, you gulp as you see the least romantic table for 2 imaginable, the gross food eating challenge. Your tribe doesn't look too enthused either, especially Amanda. You think the luckiest person out of all of you may be Brittany, who was just voted out, and at this moment is probably getting a massage at a Fijian spa. After Mare retakes her seat, the jury's decision is officially in. Each vote is worth even more than normal with the small 5-person jury. The first vote is for Amanda, then a vote for Melissa, and then Melissa receives a second vote. Now knowing your best shot is forcing a tie, you lean forward only to see another vote for Amanda, which officially eliminates you from contention. Barely caring who wins now, you close your eyes. You think to yourself that it would be great if the last vote was for you, which forces a tie, but it's not. And with a final reveal, Amanda is crowned the winner of Survivor Branford. Amanda raises both her hands into the air as she's concluded a journey that's taken her many years. In an instant, Final Tribal Council turns into what can only be described as a business networking event, as Amanda is in all her glory working the room and talking with all of the jury. As Melissa congratulates you, you return the favor, while wondering if you'll be memorable enough to be invited back for one more crack at winning the greatest game. The challenge remains close to the very end, but Lisa and Steve have stalled with only 3 pieces left. At first you thought that Angela only wanted to do the puzzle solely to avoid swimming, but she's been killing it. The excitement on Blue reaches a fever pitch as Angela slams the last piece into place and the tribe has won immunity. The thrill of the challenge win hasn't even come close to wearing off as your happy tribe returns to camp. After excitedly recounting the challenge and predicting it's a sign of great things to come, reality sets in that you 6 are standing on a deserted beach. Something needs to be done to ensure your survival during this adventure. Rob is very vocal about wanting to start a fire and celebrate the victory by eating a large meal and keeping energy high. But Mare would rather get going on shelter, noting that if the tribe is unable to sleep tonight, the momentum in the game will definitely swing to red. In moments like these, you find it impossible to hold your tongue. Who do you side with? Privately, you acknowledge that the deal came at the perfect time. You know you only have a minute or 2 left in the challenge, and this will give you a way to save face. You grandstand a bit and ask Amanda if she promises, which she agrees to. You extend your hand and hope that in going for a handshake, Amanda will slip up and take the hand that's on the idol off. Of course not, she's too smart for that as you perform a left-handed handshake. With one final look at her, you step out and feel the muscle cramps you've been fighting for hours come on in full force. Having won, it's now safe for Amanda to finally let all the discomfort she was experiencing show on her face. At least it wasn't just me, you think. Given the length of the challenge, it leaves little time to strategize before Tribal. Not to mention that the rain is forcing you to stay cooped up in the shelter. Amanda takes this time to make an announcement. She says that after some thought, she's decided to put her vote on you, and that Rob and Melissa could have a free ride into the final three by joining her. You explode on Amanda, but somehow she silences you with a look. Amanda says that she thinks you should take it as a compliment. You've played a very steady game, built good relationships, and made a power move at the final five. You do the math as talk around the shelter grows quiet, and you realize that in this spot, you have to convince one of Rob or Melissa to vote for the other to force a tie. Better yet, if you can convince them both to vote for the other, your vote can help overcome Amanda's plan. With the rain finally having let up, but with darkness coming, you only have time to talk to one of Rob or Melissa before it's time to go to Tribal Council. But who? You know that Mare's correct. On Survivor, you have to have a good shelter before anything else. Not wanting to put your super fandom on display to the whole tribe, you're able to subtly make everyone see this point of view. And your speech suddenly has the tribe eager to get to work and make the best shelter they can. You think that if your powers of persuasion are truly this strong, it can only be a sign of good things to come in the game. The teamwork that Blue showed at the challenge shines once again as everyone finds their role and gets to work. Even though you really don't have much of an idea how to make a shelter, you chip in doing various tasks in order to hide your deficiencies. You steer very clear of Mark as he lugs large pieces of bamboo around, fearing a medevac due to a concussion. Being so busy, time passes quickly, and a few hours later, everyone stands a short distance away admiring the great shelter that now stands before you. As the others begin to head up into the shelter to claim their sleeping spot, Mare privately thanks you for sticking up for her before. A very successful day one is in the books. You propose that the three of you go to the water well. Cautioning the others about needing to stay hydrated on this brutally hot day, you fill your canteen with fresh water. Angela also takes the opportunity for a refill. When you ask Mark why he's not drinking, he says that he forgot his canteen back at camp, but will be sure to fill it up before leaving for the challenge. Taking a walk to the water well without your canteen? Either he's up to something, or he's just locked in on having this conversation no matter where it takes place. Mark interrupts your train of thought by stressing the importance of staying unified as a tribe once the merge happens. You agree, partly because you believe it, and partly because it's never smart to disagree. That should be especially easy to do if we can go to the merge up in numbers, Angela points out. Having reached a soft agreement, you set out back to camp, although slightly disappointed that the conversation wasn't more productive. With no tribal council looming, and having never been on an island before, you think this is the perfect time to spend a few hours appealing to your adventurous side. You and Joe set off walking the beach, and then head into the jungle. As you talk to Joe, you realize that there's definitely potential here for a strong future alliance. After a couple hours, Joe is satisfied with his walk, and proposes heading back to camp. During the walk back, you see a green out of the corner of your eye that doesn't fit in with the rest of your surroundings. Pretending to stop to tie your shoe, you allow Joe to go ahead of you. Out of Joe's vision, you make a beeline for the green. Disappointed, you find that it's not the wrapping to an idol, or the bow on a rolled-up clue, but a few limes growing on a nearby tree. Not knowing why you'll need it, but having a suspicion it could come in handy later, you pluck a lime and stow it in your bag, then run to catch up with Joe. You hand over your water to Mark, who drains it immediately. His energy boost is noticeable, and the challenge drags on. After a few more laps, you're greatly regretting not having the water for yourself. You opt out of the challenge, but with such a numbers disadvantage, it's not long until Red wins. Still feeling woozy, at camp you have to lay down and rest, which takes you out of any strategizing. Angela, Mayor, Rob, and Mark approach as a group and tell you it's nothing personal, but that you'll be voted out so that you can leave the game to get back to full health. Not even being in your right mind, you agree. At Tribal Council, you still feel horrible and can barely answer any questions. Braced for what's coming, a jolt hits you when you remember that an idol can save you. But as you search your bag, you can't even remember if you had one to begin with. It doesn't matter, as nothing is in there other than a few balled up pieces of clothes. Your thought of, if I had had one and left it back at camp, is interrupted by the sound of your name being called out. You look up just in time to see 2 more votes for you come out. Vowing to be in better shape next time, you drag yourself in front of the tribe for one last goodbye. When you get back to camp, it's already scramble mode. You take a minute to put your things down and get organized, and when you turn around, no one's there. My goodness, what a rookie mistake, you mutter to yourself. Okay, stay calm, you haven't been voted out yet. Scanning the area, you see Angela, Mayor, Rob, and Mark having a discussion down by the water. Behind you, you hear rustling as Eddie searches alone for the immunity idol. Do you decide to join the group, or is it a better choice to go see what Eddie's up to? Numbers rule in this game, you remember. It's time to see what the foursome is talking about. Though you hear your name as you approach, and see what looks to be Mayor shushing Mark, they tell you that Eddie is going to be the target. Wanting to hear more, Rob explains that though the challenge was close, it should have been a win if not for what seemed to be Eddie giving minimal effort. Angela then points out that if you let him get too far, he'll be a favorite in the end. Have they conveniently replaced my name with Eddie's in this explanation, you think to yourself? Regardless, without another choice, you agree with the plan to vote Eddie out, though you've grown to like him. Tribal Council is scary, especially in your first visit. As everyone answers questions, you have a growing suspicion that this Eddie plan is fake, and that it's going to be you. But it also seems like Eddie is a little out of the loop himself, and you know he's not that good of an actor. Luckily, it turns out that there was nothing to worry about, this time at least, as Eddie is voted out unanimously. Eddie grabs his torch and sees his game end just when it started. I will not be coming back here until the merge, you boldly predict. When you get back to camp, it's already scramble mode. You take a minute to put your things down and get organized, and when you turn around, no one's there. My goodness, what a rookie mistake, you mutter to yourself. Okay, stay calm, you haven't been voted out yet. Scanning the area, you see Angela, Mayor, Rob, and Mark having a discussion down by the water. Behind you, you hear rustling as Eddie searches alone for the immunity idol. Do you decide to join the group, or is it a better choice to go see what Eddie's up to? Thinking this is a good chance to form a one-on-one bond, you follow Eddie into the jungle. Unfortunately, he isn't all that interested in bonding with anyone else except the idol. Your attempts at conversation fall on deaf ears, and you curse yourself for not having gone with the group who you see is no longer near the water. My fate at Tribal Council may be entirely out of my hands now, you realize. You sweat it out at Tribal, both from the raging fire in front of you and from the stress of being on the hot seat. Realizing how good the players are on your tribe, everyone answers the questions asked of them without giving too much away. Having had almost nothing to do with the way this vote is going, you silently pray that you get the opportunity to go back to camp and start fresh. And it turns out that your prayers are answered, as Eddie is sent home in a vote of 5-1. Not wanting to again experience the feeling of having had such a close call, you vow to let it drive you to play a better game going forward.